Runner, the original, was, what was it, was it 2018, 2020? Like
2019.
the
You're talking
2019.
about the 2049?
But it didn't have the year in the title.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't it?
Oh, didn't it?
No,
Oh,
no,
damn.
it was just called Blade Runner.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Sup, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and I'm here with Silver and Johnny for the Best Gaming Podcast, 500 anniversary edition.
Woo.
500. We've been here consistently covering games. Maybe not always consistently, but trying consistently to cover games. I want to say how much I appreciate everybody who shows up all the time, sits down with us, talk about these. Also, thanks to everybody on Spotify and iTunes. The viewership's been notoriously much higher than I always expect there, and we've been #1 in Turkey a couple times, so thank you to Turkey. Whoever's like we joke about Turkey and Romania, man. I don't know. Those guys, there's probably 3 people. Dev guy is probably there in Romania telling everybody, like, hey, dude, man, let's get 3 people together, sit around a table, and listen to the Best Gaming Podcast, man. We'll make it #1 again. But I do appreciate it, especially because, you know, I know that we don't always sit and cover all the news all the time and sit there and sort of go through everything weekly. But I do appreciate these guys and my Fridays, just sitting down to talk with you guys and talk with these guys here. So that, thank you, that mental masturbation out of the way. It's been quite a week, man. There was the Switch CES. There was, well, Switch 2 leaks, the CES. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 popped today. Shadows delayed. Let's talk about the Shadow delay real quick. So this is the 3rd delay for Shadows, for Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I don't know if you guys saw, but they sent out a blurb about, like, you know, looking at the future and trying to decide where to fit the game. And people took it, rightfully so, because they've gone and started to look at, you know, financial advisors for purchases or what have you to move forward. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like 2025 is definitely going to be the year where we see companies. There's going to be 3 or 4 big changes this year, but I feel like big companies are going to start looking at being more flexible with releases, like the release time. Why waste hundreds of millions of dollars releasing over the top of anybody, right? It seems like you're going to you might accrue a little bit of a financial hardship by moving. But to me, it feels like we're far past the days of old where you had that solid date and you just had to release on that time frame. And this is the 2nd or 3rd February, right? Where there's been, you know, where it's been absolutely crazy. Do you guys think we'll see that, or do you think that they're going to stick to their guns and just release? You know, a lot of these companies will all release at the same time, regardless.
I think there's always been kind of a flavor of the year month that's the very popular. I think it used to be fall, right? It was always like coming out fall this year, right? It was big for games, and now it seems to be February consistently in the last few years. And I don't know if there's a narrative around releasing your game in February sends a message that it's like a really big game in a way, because you're willing to compete with all those big games. It's almost like you're competing for the spot, like the spotlight or something. And then if you win really big. I don't know. Do you think there's something to that? Like a momentum or a...
I hadn't thought about it. I think what you're saying is, like, if you join the race in February, you don't leave that race and you just hope you're the #1 in that race.
Yeah. Maybe like to draw a comparison, you know, like how reviews, if you're a big reviewer, you want to release your review day 1 because that's when you have the most. But funny enough, if you're a smaller channel, oftentimes you actually can do better if you release like a little later.
It's fair.
You know, because there's sort of like a second wave of interest sometimes. And the big guys have already, you know, their reviews have already been watched, etc. So maybe there's something to that. And honestly, maybe it's also laziness, or just like following what everybody's doing.
What's worked, maybe?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
The trend.
What about you, Silver? Do you see any changes, or do you think this is just a sort of more of a one-off?
I mean, I think I definitely agree with you that things have shifted in that there's probably a broader perception that you don't have to stick strictly with the release date that you've marked down necessarily, and you can maybe push that, and you will get leeway to push it under the assumption that you'll fix the game or whatever, or be able to deliver a more stable end product.
Right.
Especially given like the reception for Cyberpunk and whatnot. So I think that's definitely shifted. Whether we'll see it like more broadly this year from a lot of others, I don't know. Because I mean, yeah, the market may sort of, or like the gaming community may sort of allow for that, but I don't know that shareholders will be as forgiving.
Yeah, that's true.
Still, and I think, I mean, I haven't checked, but I can only speculate that this recent delay for Assassin's Creed has probably had a significant impact on Ubisoft share prices, right?
Right.
So I think there's definitely still going to be significant incentive, particularly for the larger publishers, to stick to whatever date they've marked down. But I do agree that there's definitely been like a shift in the public perception of allowing more for those types of delays, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and what I see, so we always joke about Horizon, the guys who make Horizon. Like, nobody's had worse luck, right? Nobody in the universe has had worse luck. And I think it was Johnny yesterday or the day before, in our Discord chat, Johnny said something like, "Yeah, you did sell good during the busy time, but come on, like, wouldn't you rather sell more outside of that busy time? Wouldn't you rather sell that number plus more if it's possible, instead of knowing that the consumer is down $60 already via these other titles?" And you're right about the shareholders, because you can't explain to a shareholder a long-term investment. It doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. You have to mix it with the short-term pop, right? And
gains.
And you're absolutely right that when you look at it, these big companies do have to explain that to the shareholders, which is funny because you would think a shareholder would want, a shareholder, not a share seller buyer, but a shareholder, they're holding, would want that long-term investment that continues to grow. But there's so many other companies out there that they move if it doesn't grow right away. And yeah, that's a good point, dude. I hadn't thought about it. I would like to see it change. I would like to see it adjust, and that these companies look at it and say, listen, we're no longer in the physical space. We're no longer constrained to a particular dynamic and paradigm where it's like, this is what you're releasing at these particular times. And you have to hold to this triad of a somewhat unbuggy release at a particular price at this particular time, and instead go for a less buggy release at a particular time that's slightly adjusted at a different price point, maybe perhaps to get people to be more excited, whether that means more stuff. Like, I'm sure you guys saw, but Ubisoft has stated Shadows will have the DLC will be free now. The extended stuff, some of it will be in that main package for free. When you buy the game, you'll get it later. But I don't know, guys. You look at February and you're just like, this is ridiculous. And remember how many moved into February. They moved because they thought it would be empty. Go ahead, Silver.
Yeah, I mean, you would definitely assume, given the increasing shift to the digital platforms, that sort of shifting release date thing would be easier to implement, given that you're less dependent on having to print physical media, right?
Yeah.
So that would potentially make that decision easier, because you're not committed. You're less committed, rather, to a specific date than if you've like gone gold or have already started printing discs and whatnot.
I also think because we can't embrace one side of gaming and pretend the other side of it doesn't occur. So if you embrace that, I'm not saying embrace in a good way, but if you embrace that it is digital for a great deal of titles, then you should be able to embrace that you don't have to follow the physical release schedule in that paradigm. So the idea to me would be to say, okay, it's been a long time. We're starting to see how all this works after many years. It could certainly have been much earlier, but why is it that 4 or 5 huge titles are being released in this particular time, when other than shareholders, like you said, other than the announcements? But I do believe some shareholders would be more open to a company on the new games, not changing their date, but on the new games stating, we will release fiscal year 2005.
Yeah.
And just leaving it at that and saying, and then just letting everything not be, because you know how it is, guys, whenever one of these directors comes out and says, we're thinking about adding this, and if it's not in the next game, people freak out. They're like, well, he said he thought about it, about doing it. I would like to see a little less data sometimes, a little bit more showing of the game versus talking. I know that builds a PR, but then also a little bit less of the discrete exact date, and just say, hey, you know, this is coming, and you can see that it's coming. It's right there in front of you, but the exact date is not as concrete. Because,
and I think a lot of that, like giving a specific date, came from the legacy way things were done for physical. Like you said,
UPS,
you know, it has to
American
go gold,
Express.
like it goes gold here. Everything was tightly scheduled, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
we ship the games this day so that the outlets can have them on release, yada yada, and everything is like super tightly coupled. Even like PR cycles and everything. Like, hey, you know, we're starting the whatever the ads here, X date, and their X date, and everything is sort of like dialed in perfectly, right? And now the reality is you can be much more flexible than that, because you can say, well, like you're saying, let's release this quarter, or like, you know, this time frame, more general, and then the developers can pick, you know, when the game's really ready, when's the best time. And in a way, the uncertainty of when is it going to come out is not a big problem now, because what's more interesting for stakeholders is that the game comes out in a better state. Because I think what's hurt a lot is those times where the game does come out, but it's, you know, it needed more time.
Yeah. And I mean, if we remove Ubisoft from this position, we've seen other companies now move. And we've also seen many companies release Buggy games. And the games are huge. They're much larger. There's a lot more going on. But I was telling Silver and Johnny prior to the podcast, for those listening, that it feels like there is a switch in the air. So it used to be 30 FPS. It looked great, right? And that we accepted a little bit more Buggy. This is years ago. And then 60 FPS creeped up, especially when 4K also creeped up. Those two were, I feel, somewhat combined. HDR was there, but that's sort of been left behind because of its issues. And now we're in a time where, with so much competition, the idea that a game, we're all going to have bugs. That's the way a PC game, that's the way any game works, is bugs. And you'll hear somebody say old games didn't have bugs. That's quite untrue. But we have so many games now, it's so much easier. And 100,000 people testing a game, zero moment, is more than any tester company, more than any company can ever test for. And 100,000 is a low number now. We're seeing, we're seeing blockbuster numbers in concurrent rates and stuff like that. And those are all testers. When you buy a game, you're a tester. That's just sort of the way it is. So I would love to see more of these switches. I would love to see this kind of stuff. Spetsu says, especially when review bombing is a thing and gives a bad rap. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was crazy, and it shows how tangential and shallow our discussion can be, which is Windows patched something, and it broke some Ubisoft games. And people were review bombing the Ubisoft game. And you're like, And that's probably because there isn't a Windows review bomb location, right? Where you can go and you can review bomb Windows, and they're pretty ironclad against it. I mean, they're
outside of maybe the Xbox store.
Aside from the Xbox store,
maybe count.
Or the Windows store, what have you.
Yeah.
So, and they got review bombed, and it really showed when you looked at it. You're like, wow, okay, that's how little we investigate. Not that we should investigate, but you get my drift. It shows how the aim can go towards any one group. So. Here's the kicker, though. Here's the other side of this. If a game launches really buggy after being delayed multiple times, the hammering is not only going to be that it's buggy, it's going to be that it was delayed a bunch of times, and how did these serious bugs not get fixed? I don't mean a couple bugs. I'm talking about the more buggy games. Like, I'm not talking about even what you would experience in a normal open world game, or with Silver's guys' heads disappearing in Kingdom Come 1. But, like true, just, oh my God, this is buggy, it's not performant. That is going to unleash a torrent. And so maybe behind the scenes, people are like, hey, if we do, and it's got a bunch of bugs because there's all these different levels of performance on PCs and cards, then if we do release it and it is even buggier, we're going to get hit even harder. And so there's that discussion. Shareholders wouldn't want that either. And we say shareholders, but I mean, really, when you even look at an indie game, once enough people know about your game, shareholders don't necessarily have to have money. They're also the mind shareholders. And those guys can turn on you as well. You know, the people who championed your game prior, and, you know, maybe you don't hit your early access milestones. We've seen that come and circle back around to where the lack of, you know, we talk about money investment from shareholders, but there's also talk investment and like coverage investment, and that can go away as well. So yeah, it's an interesting one, man. It's I'm excited for Shadows, actually, very excited. I have no real, I mean, I've seen their games. There's some that have been more buggy than others, which we've talked about. I think the best example would be a true buggy game would be like Unity when that came out with Fundamental. And then you get the buggier style AC games, and then you get the ones that are fairly bug-free. I don't remember having a lot of bugs during Odyssey, for instance. Like, generally, like, oh my God, this is so buggy. So, yeah, my hat's off to them for delaying, and I hope more companies do it, man. I think it's time to go ahead and just move away from that kind of stuff and be more flexible towards it. Horizon Zero Dawn, I hope those guys are watching and learning. And just sitting back and saying, guys, man, we need to hold off on some of
maybe
these.
Let's not give a specific date next time.
Yeah, maybe let's wait a little bit and just see, you know, everything that we've got on offer. The next thing up was Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, man. So the previews came out. A bunch of people were they asked us to fly. There was 2 or 3 events. I think one was United States. I could be wrong. And then there was a couple offerings to fly out to wherever they are and do some previews. But from what I've seen, they popped this morning, hyper positive, especially when it comes to the one thing Silver mentioned prior to starting the podcast, which is performance and like being surprised that it's running so well. They stuck with their engine. They didn't upgrade. They didn't change. I think that's probably going to come around and save them, because you can handle a game that doesn't look great, but if it looks great and it's just crashing or really poorly performant, I think now we're reporting on this, you know, so often. I don't know if you guys saw any of these previews yet, because it happened 33 minutes, I think, before we went live. But from what I've seen, it looks to bring people directly into the new game. Some new systems, some old systems. Graphically, I don't know. Were you guys impressed with Kingdom Come 1 when it came out? Because okay, you were. Yeah, so was I. I was fairly impressed with that, especially because it was a smaller location, but grass, foliage, all the terrain systems.
Yeah, that all looked great,
dude. It did. Yeah, and it looks like this is the same way. It looks like you know, step up maybe in some resolution, texture resolution, stuff like that.
And I mean the upscaling of the resolution pack, 4K resolution packs they released for Kingdom Come have really kept its graphics current, I think.
Yeah, it's a smart thing to do, right? Throw the 4K in there if somebody wants it. You know, you don't have to make it in the options. You can add it, because that's a console download. Is that also a PC download for the 4K?
Yes. So
it's on the, oh wow, okay. Is it, so Steam is where that one was released, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I think you can probably get it on, I mean, I would be very surprised if you can't get it on Epic as well.
And maybe
frankly.
Good Old Games now?
And Good Old Games, yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine you can get it on both of those. And maybe even on like on EA's platforms, because they do sell other games outside of their publishing.
Yeah. We can give shit to EA all the time, but they've got their independents too, which are quite good. So it's easy to tease them, but Johnny, were you impressed with Kingdom Come? I mean, ignoring the fighting thing, I think we've talked about like some cumbersomeness, but graphics wise?
Yeah, I was. And I remember at the time it was the game that was a benchmark for GPUs as well. If you could run that game at like, you know, high graphics, you really had a banger system for the time. I think it was around like a 1080 Ti. Time frame. That I think that's what I had. I
think that's what I had too. If I don't remember right. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's been a while, right? And when we look at it now, and we're saying, you know, they haven't changed that much. One good thing is that we probably can expect like a much more stable experience for a game that still looks good. You know, because I would look at it even now. I was watching some streamers play the first game recently, and I think the game still looks pretty great. Yeah, it's got some rough edges, but overall, like you said, vegetation and stuff is pretty insane.
And I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty smart of them to not do the span massive open world, right? Like instead just say, hey, it doesn't need to be 8,000, kilometers. It can be a smaller
No, but I feel like
location.
I mean, certainly if I feel like the game world, the first one was significantly large anyway.
No, I
even
did
though-
too. I did too.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. I just think it showed more of a hands-on because it was smaller. Like there was the ability to maybe hand play stuff, because I covered that. It was one of the first videos I ever did. I think it might be the first walking the walk I ever did, and I just walked around and looked at locations, and there was something about it that just
And it
looked good.
probably also felt larger to a lot of people because fast travel and such was so limited in that game compared to a lot of other
compared to a lot of other
open world
games. Yeah, so you had to. I did real quick here on business, $5 super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. It always helps us keep going. Happy 2025. Thanks for a great run of podcasts in 24. Keep it real for this year. Always. I appreciate that. I was just gonna say that the lack of that travel and the way the HUD worked made me pay attention. A lot more in that game. You're always looking, always watching for bandits, always trying to keep careful.
And as someone who, I've lived in Europe most of my life, so I moved when I was like 11 or something. They do capture really well this type of like European countryside, I want to say. Like, in Spain, a lot of this like dry foliage style that they're showing, it's really reminiscent of that. Like it is really based on how things look, and it's distinctly
European.
Yes, of like
I know
these
what you mean.
European cities of like this area, like Mediterranean type area. Because when you go to, for example, UK, like London, where I live, the vegetation is completely different. It's like night and day comparison. So there's definitely a really big vibe that they capture. And when you're riding around with your horse, I felt like it made sense, the distance between, little villages and stuff, because you would expect it to be like that. That you do have these longer segments where just nothing has been built,
why build, especially back then without cars and shit, why build something a super, long distance away, try to sort of get it centralized and then bring your stuff in. Flo Nix was saying, hey, it's been a while, I've noticed Abs, he's never on the podcast anymore, don't mean to pry, but what did I miss? Nothing at all. He is, as Spetsu said, got a new job, but even prior to that, when he moved from Canada back to the Middle East, his time shifted, and so he was nice enough. He gave me like 3 months warning that we're on a Friday, and for him, I think when we finish, it's 1:30 a.m. or even later, maybe. And, he's a young guy with priorities of like meeting people and stuff, and he was nice enough to give me, it was like 3 or 4 months. So he can still do the Wednesdays, but we're trying to just get the podcast solidified and try to figure out what to do and stuff like that before we look at more or something like that. Speaking of more, though, I did want to cover for the patrons, I did a no HUD discussion video for them, in particular, just for patrons. And Kingdom Come is one of the ones that informed that. I've always felt like Kingdom Come did a good job of giving you an idea. Something was up ahead. There was like, whether it be little bits of vegetation being stomped down, just little things that made you realize there were people in this area other than bandits, but I'm talking about if it was in particular towns and stuff, as you came up to it, you could sort of see that transition. They did a good job. I got lost a couple times. I mean, that happens, but the way the fast travel was done, that game liked to put some arbitrariness on stuff, and I know not everybody loved the save game as well. Save game was drinking, right?
Yeah, drinking and sleeping.
And sleeping. Thank you. So, yeah, you definitely have that kind of situation. But from what I've seen in Kingdom Come 2, the smart move was to stay with their engine, deliver a game that would upscale, not upscale, but would take as newest assets they could, but at the same time try to deliver something that runs on pretty much everything and still looks good. They also, you're introduced to the character pretty much right away. You jump back into his shoes. The only thing I've wondered about, and I haven't watched closely about this, But how do you onboard newcomers? Because this is truly a mid sequel, right? It's truly a Empire Strikes Back kind of thing, where if you were to say jump into this, what would you get out? What would you understand and not understand? That'll be the big part I want to see, is like,
Right.
how do they sell you on Henry? How do they sell you on any of this if this is your first one? In some ways, I guess, sort of like Mass Effect 2, where a lot of, the original was exclusive, then you go to on everything, right? So,
Yeah.
And if anybody in chat knows, because I haven't seen all the videos, if anybody knows how they introduce and sort of invest the player, that would be quite interesting. Combat seems to be generally the same, so I'm okay with, it is janky. Maybe they'll adjust some things. I know end game people had some issues with Kingdom Come, the end game. They felt that the combo. Some people felt the combos, you sort of knew what you had to pull off against every single guy. We'll have to see if that continues or if they adjust it. I don't think it's gonna focus on that. I think you'll still have fights and everything, but I mean, you're a leader now. I have a feeling there's going to be focused much more on groups and, maybe leadership, which would be nice. Be nice to see him, a team of men. I don't know. Go ahead, Silver.
What I'm hoping for is just a rebalancing of the higher difficulties, because on the higher difficulties in the first game, the combat really sort of suffered and became less enjoyable, because you would only be able to strike like once or twice before the enemy would immediately counter.
Right.
And you would have to counter back and then counter back and forth. And that basically made combos completely meaningless.
Yeah.
For the higher difficulties, you just couldn't do it because you could only have one or two attacks. So you had to basically play defensively and then bonk like once and then step away or counter or whatever. And that made the combat really, really repetitive for the harder difficulties down the line. So I hope that's something that they've possibly addressed for the sequel and rebalanced. Because honestly, just like on the lower difficulties, I found the combat to be really, really satisfying in terms of like flowing it together into combos and counters and whatnot.
I did until I got to the end.
It just got really well. For me, the main problem on the lower difficulties with the end was that it got way too easy.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when you get to the end, because it's scaling up towards harder, because it's trying to scale up the difficulty a little bit as you get towards the end. I felt that the end game, even on the easier, felt a little bit like what you were complaining about all the time on harder. Was that like it felt like the move set truncates down to like, if that makes sense. Like you're sort of you're like, all right, and it's not like you should be pulling off crazy coup de grace moves. You're like, all right, that's maybe won't.
But you're fighting like an ordinary brigand, and he'd like instantly riposte you.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, that's especially when maybe he didn't do that up until that point. So you're sort of like, where's the trade-off there?
It's also it's also annoying because the ripostes, like the auto counters, you couldn't really do anything. They just happen automatically. You can't prevent the enemy from doing it. So it got to be really, really annoying, especially in like the tourneys and stuff where you would attack and then you would get punished for attacking immediately. So it basically just constantly incentivized you into being on the defensive and being the one who did the counter.
Right.
Who hit the perfect counter every time.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see. Travel looks like, from what I can tell, they've adjusted some stuff, but it certainly seems like the restrictions are still there on a lot of stuff, which I think is great. Not every game,
I agree.
Different. So,
I mean, that's one of the things that separates that game from a lot of the other stuff in the market. That is one of its strengths rather than a weakness, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I understand quality of life, but I understand quality of the development. Like this is our development ideal.
And the vision that they're going for.
Yeah.
Although they could still cut back on some of it, because going outside and getting your clothes completely filthy in like 2 minutes after you've washed them is a bit much.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, and I don't really buy the idea that making fast travel optional is always a good idea. I think that sometimes if you don't provide fast travel, and you design everything around it, that can be a better result than if you have both options, normal travel or fast travel, and then people can choose. Because what ends up happening, a lot of people just choose fast travel out of inertia, and they don't even try traveling to places.
Right.
That I know a lot of people who, that's what they do. If it's available, they will take it. And if instead you sort of design around it, that could actually be a better experience.
Yeah, I mean, Death Stranding is another game that's basically designed for not doing that, right? Where the focus is on making the actual journey.
When I did the no HUD, I brought up some research studies. Like Masterson did one that was really good, which tracked people GPS versus non, map markers versus non, and how really intuitive it is when you don't use a map or when you're not quick traveling to understand key points in geography, key points in the world itself, identify those regardless of the direction you come. And that if you use GPS or map markers, you can come at a town from a different direction and be completely lost, not even recognize it's the town because you're not paying attention to everything. And then over time, you get this thing where people remember a game as points. And we already use our memory as points. The memory, most memories we have isn't the entire event. Your birthday memory isn't the entire event. It's a little tiny, it's a point within the event. It's a present you get. And I think with a lot of games, quality of life is great. But then you get these times where even in our discussions, in the behind the scenes, we were doing a VC and somebody was asking me about something in a game. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's in the game. It's like, I mean, everybody in chat was like, it's right there. But the person had fast traveled so much that their memory told them that the feature that was in the game was not in the game at all. And I consider them a fairly detail-oriented person. If they had remembered it, they would have brought it up. And I do feel that Kingdom Come, my memory of Kingdom Come is little bits of traveling and knowing that this landscape marker is where I need to go, knowing that this road didn't have any like rock on one side where they had put up a little tiny marker,
a broken wall, a little bridge.
And I came up from a completely different area. It was on my different side. I came up from the different side as well. So it was on the left and it was far instead of on the right and close. When I came up, I knew intrinsically where I was because I had traveled that location, and the landmarks, the study also showed that people would remember not only the primary landmark they were going to. I'm going to give you an example. This is not in the research study, but like the Eiffel Tower. But they remembered the other landmarks nearby because those are progressively noticeable as you get to the main landmark. They're the things that you use as like mini landmarks as you go, your own internal GPS. I like that. I think it's good. I think that Kingdom Come works that way, and many other games could. And to me, this is just overall exciting. I haven't seen really anything negative on it. And I don't mean that in a way of, oh my God, people are lying. I mean, they've been pretty clear of the stuff that they've done, like sticking to that engine so that they could make this game quicker, and the fact that it already looked pretty good originally. So on these cards and what we have now, we should be able to run it, I mean, Kingdom comes on the Switch.
Yeah. That's why I'm feeling pretty optimistic about like it being more stable. That was one of the problems too when I played it, is that even if you did have a good system, it was kind of unstable, and there were lots of graphical bugs. For example, in my entire playthrough, the shadows didn't have a neck. It sounds kind of weird, but like the shadow that my character projected on the floor had everything, but no neck.
Right.
And that was just the one thing that stuck with me, was such an annoying little like graphical glitch,
You can turn up the shadows all you want, but still no neck.
Right.
Like,
and there were other things like people getting stuck on stairs, just like different bugs like that. And I'm hoping a lot of those just won't happen now.
Hey, the stair thing. I forgot.
Yeah,
that was a distinct bug. Yeah, dude. I think I even might have did a second video just on a couple places where if you knew where it was, you could get to the top and they couldn't get up the stairs to a certain side. So like there was only like 1/4 of the stair was passable for them. So you go to the 3/4 that wasn't, and you tighten up against that so their pathing would never tell them to go away from you. Most enemies don't, right? They try to get the quickest beeline. and you could just stand on the stairs and you could bean them, and they couldn't do anything. Good times. I forgot all about that. Those are good times. I like taking advantage of that kind of stuff, especially if I'm getting my ass kicked. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
If you can't get up some
Speaking
stairs,
of
I'm gonna prove. Go ahead.
Speaking of getting your ass kicked, one cool thing in the original was the fantasy of going from zero to hero.
Yeah.
As Henry. You know, you absolutely sucked at everything initially, and then you become, you know, really good, right, at fighting, or really strong. And I'm wondering, like, how they're gonna handle that. That's always awkward. You know, the sequel, you have amnesia. Like, why is it that you're all of a sudden learning these things all over again? Because they, in some way, they have to like tutorialize the combat, right?
They do. That's why I think there'll be other things that they focus on. I think this one will solidly be hero to anti-hero. I'm just guessing, but I have
some other type of arc.
The arc being that as a leader, you have to make bad choices. That was already reflected. I felt in Kingdom Come, there were already things that you did that were, slightly questionable here. Well, not slightly. There were multiple things you could do. The story didn't really flex on that, but I do feel that, maybe we'll get to that point here with this one. We'll just have to see, man. But everything I've seen, it looks like it's, I just really haven't seen anything negative about it. We'll have to see sound and music. The music and sound that I've heard in some preview videos sounds really good. Sounds seem to be exactly what I would want. Be nice to get a game that, just works.
Just works.
Just you plug it, I'm expecting bugs of some kind, because there's drivers that have nothing to do with that game. I'm also expecting that.
Lots of variables in that game.
Yeah, lots of
things that can break.
Yeah. Moving on from there, Switch 2. So Switch 2 rumors have been hot and heavy. There's a patent for their upscaling tech, which looked pretty good. Some slight changes to how they're looking at doing upscaling for the Switch 2 or future hardware at some point. And then so I don't know if you guys saw this, but basically at a period of time, you start shipping out your system for like grips and stuff, especially the Switch and the Switch 2, to third-party makers, like your A-Power companies that make third-party peripherals. And it looks like, for the most part, a lot of these leaks are based around those people, those groups. But we actually had somebody print out a copy of what the Switch 2 will look like in 3D. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. They printed out a 3D, a mock-up. It is bigger than the Switch. It looks to be, in all other ways, the form factor of the Switch. Pretty much identical. We know what RAM it's got. We know generally what CPU it has. The GPU, there's some questions on, will it have a specific chip for their type of upscaling that's a baby chip? One of the things that's interesting about NVIDIA, I'm sure you guys didn't, but I sat there and had to listen through all the NVIDIA CES. And NVIDIA likes to pimp themselves, which they should. They're doing quite well. But one thing that they did pimp is they just have so many different configurations for different things. They were sort of showing they can do a supercomputer at your desk. They can do the cloud. They can do industrial computing. They can do video cards. The one thing that wouldn't surprise me is to see the Switch, being older tech, obviously, because they're not going to jump to the brand new stuff, but with some adjustments for Nintendo, including, some kind of upscaling system. On a device that big, you only have to hit 1080p. So the upscaling really, to me, would almost be more for upscaling to a 4K TV if you want to throw it on. And I think they can't ignore that kind of situation. But from what I'm hearing, people are happy. There's third-party companies that are already sort of hinting on titles. And this morning, prior to starting here, there was a leak of, there was a leak of a couple things coming to the Switch 2, which I was quite excited to see. Let me bring this up. It was a store, really, the leak on the store that basically said that there were a couple games coming to Nintendo Switch. Let me find these real quick. And I was pretty excited for this because it was... Let me go back. I don't want to try to hit the search button, but I may have to here. Oh, come on. Did I delete that? Red Dead Redemption 2 and Tekken 8. So here we go. A French retailer seemingly, we say seemingly because nobody knows, leaked a list of third-party games coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, including Tekken 8 and Red Dead 2. So ignoring Red Dead 2 for a second, because I do think it's possible. I'm not going to lie. From what I've heard, it would have some caveats, but it would be possible. I think Tekken 8, that's a really good decision to put something like that on there. But I think overall also all these companies are going to want to treat the Switch as like the girlfriend that can't pick between the two guys. Like, I feel like Microsoft is going to try to get their stuff on there. I think that Sony may, you may see them because the world's changing, right? Get your shit out on everything. We look at the history of 2023 and 24. We see them on everything. Red Dead 2, for instance, though. So Red Dead 2, PS4, Xbox game consoles, it came out. And I thought it looked really good on those older consoles. I thought Red Dead 2 looked pretty phenomenal at 30 FPS.
Yeah.
But my question is, Red Dead 2 on the Switch 2, does that garner any anticipation from you guys?
No.
Other than a name other than a litmus test for technology, maybe?
Red Dead 2 is not a game that is conducive to me for handheld.
Okay, interesting.
How immersive it really is.
Right.
Like, that game to me is all about immersion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something I get from a handheld platform.
Okay, that's fair. What about you, Johnny? Red Dead 2? I mean, I know you're not necessarily Switch, you've got your system and stuff like that, but other than a tech thing, does that interest you too much?
Yeah, I think it's cool. So I have a Steam Deck, and I do play it if I'm watching something that either I've already watched before, or maybe I'm just, watching a YouTube video where I'm not really looking at it. I'm sort of listening, looking sometimes. I do like to play games. I play stuff like Slay the Spire, Balatro, but also sometimes some of these games where you can just like roam, like go do something or go loot a location, go. So I do think, Red Dead could be a good game for that if you're just laid back and you want to go out and fish or do a couple missions.
Some animals, watch the skin animation that takes 20 minutes.
And funny enough, I booted up Red Dead Redemption 2 during the holidays to just get in there. And, so I could see it. Sure, you don't have the immersion factor when you play it in a smaller screen, but you do have like the comfort and the laid back.
Which fits Red Dead sometimes.
Fits
even more. I beat. I told you guys I'd beat LA Noire on the Switch.
Oh, dude! And does that one have a version on the Switch or no?
Yeah. Oh, and I got to tell you guys, I'm not disagreeing with the immersion thing, but I can only say my experience, which was quite intriguing to me. And I think I've told you guys Skyrim was quite intriguing on the Switch to me, because I ended up paying more attention in Skyrim to what was going on in the story than I ever did on the big TV. And I think that's because you have Discord running and alerts, and all the real world can infect whatever you're playing on, even a console with friend requests. And let's give a positive Nintendo, their backwards ass handling of all that stuff helps with not intruding.
Locks you out of everything.
So to me, as a litmus test, it's awesome. We got Witcher 3 on the original Switch. That's crazy, right? Yes, it was called The Witcher 3, and it turned on.
Yes.
It was definitely in a difficult position. But we also got Hogwarts. And both have been beaten on the Switch, meaning a person can play. I think Johnny was teasing me or somebody was, because I said you can beat these games on the Switch. Was that you? Technically, it's possible to beat them on the Switch. So they're full games on there, despite their changes. I mean, we are talking about a system with pretty dramatic improvements purely due to the time in which it's released and the new technology they can put on there. I'm very excited to see what those would look like. And I think 1080p on a handheld is more than crisp enough. I don't think you need to go crazy with that kind of stuff. And then that leaves you all kinds and all manner of ways in which you can make it efficient for that smaller screen. Because while they have competition, the ROG Ally, the Legion, Windows is looking at stuff, those are still game systems that are not their own thing. They're mimicking Windows. They're mimicking an OS like Steam OS. They're doing something. They're mimicking a PC. Switch is not mimicking anything. It's the Switch. There's no other. It's what it is what it is. And I actually feel that that's one of the positives and the negatives, of that particular system. But from what I've seen and what it looks like it'll be delivering, I'm actually quite excited to see how that releases. And then also, again, to see those third parties looking and saying, you know what, guys, we do want to be. I mean, imagine this. There's been a lot of third-party companies that have just skipped the Switch. And the Switch has, what is it, the biggest install base of all time? Or the most sales? I could be wrong. Well, it's high up there. Switch is, like, I thought I saw something where it was number one. But whatever. It's huge. And a lot of third-party companies just switch away from it, to borrow a bad pun, because it's not technically ready. It's not technically proficient enough. If it is, these third-party companies and, first party at this point can look and say, okay, this is what we can deliver on this system. And then you suddenly see a Ubisoft or something saying Division 3 is on all three systems at the same time. And to me, I just don't see that not being a huge positive for everybody involved. Like, that just means, especially if crossplay becomes a thing, which I say that with bated breath. I don't know. I feel like some companies just don't want crossplay, don't want cross save. They sort of want you to buy two versions at minimum, which really frustrates me. But I would like to see some improvements there. Anything from the Switch 2 as a hardware device that we want to see? Like, we know what it's going to deliver probably in its handheld form factor and resolution wise. I'd like to see removable Switch sticks so you could put different ones on. I'd like to see there isn't much on the system I really need from a Switch 2 mechanically, because I know they're not going to switch the thumbstick location for me personally, which is one of the issues.
Yeah.
But is there anything hardware-wise or setup-wise? Was there anything about the Switch that sort of got your goat? And
the screen looks way bigger. I don't know if
it does. Yeah.
Just in the mock-ups, it looks
it is
insanely bigger.
Yeah.
Not funny enough, like you said, not the Joy-Cons. Like the Joy-Cons are, I think, the same. They look the same.
Yeah.
It's just a bigger screen, so it won't fix that part. But yeah, bigger screen. And what excites me too is being able to go back to some of those Nintendo games that I already own that didn't play very well, and be able to. I'm curious about what the improvement is going to be on those games, like day one. If I boot up Tears of the Kingdom or like some of those Pokemon games that didn't run very well at all, or maybe some games that did run well, but now I can play in like a better resolution, like
Witcher 3.
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking, well, what's the other one? The one that had 3 in the name, Chronicles.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Xenoblade.
Yeah,
Xenoblade Chronicles. Thank you. There you go. Was a great game. Already looked pretty decent, but would love to see like a better resolution on that.
And there's a question of whether you'll get save clouds though.
Yeah.
To
there's
transfer your save games.
Right.
So you can actually continue.
Yeah, because I think on the Switch you weren't even able to like get your save files between two different switches.
That's been a frequent Nintendo issue over the years.
Right.
Yeah. That's the thing too, right? I feel like I know what the hardware is going to be generally capable of, and we know the size, and we sort of know what Switch 2 would mean, and they've been very clear this is not some world-ending generational jump. They're not aiming for PlayStation 5 power. They're not even aiming for Windows, PC handhelds. They're aiming for a Switch 2, a progressive upgrade to Switch 2. And so for the most part, I feel like I know what I'm going to get, except for what Silver just said, which is all the other shit that requires a ton of testing, and it's something that Nintendo's been weak at forever. Nintendo's never ever been strong. So if there's any caveat you could point in their, a sort of chink in their armor, it is that their services online, their handling of different stuff has never been, it's just never been good. And
that's a good point. And it's a world of difference if you tell me it's backwards compatibility, but you can't bring your save.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Because I simply won't boot a game. Like some of these games, I simply won't boot it up if I have to go through everything I've done.
Yeah, like Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom, huge game. If I have to play the 40 hours again, I just probably won't, right?
Yeah, Solar was in our Discord streaming a game on the Switch. He had got a new one and didn't realize that he couldn't move. I can't remember if he lost a save or what have you, and there was like that desperation in your voice, you know, of where you're like, I want to get in, but I don't want to get in to 40 plus just to get back to the stuff I hadn't seen. And which is frequently a discussion we always have about, you know, if you don't finish a game and then you go back to it and, you know, you're getting your butt kicked or what have you, and you're like, boy, I just wish I could load my save. Nintendo definitely needs to take the competition for Nintendo really is understanding where everybody is in the market for cross saves and cross play and all that kind of stuff and try to fit it in there somewhere. I don't expect them to be perfect because none of these companies have aced it, and then the third-party companies don't have to do anything. Like, for example, Division.
At least attempt to be somewhat current.
Attempt to be current, and if the company wants to, right? If the dev wants to put those in, it's there available to them because you know, Division 3, nothing is nothing. Like they're three ecosystems completely separate from one another, depending on what platform. So they're a third party that just doesn't do it on their own. But I would like Nintendo to have those systems in place that if somebody wants to, like Johnny said, if they try to sell me on backwards compatible, but my save is not backwards compatible, that is not backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
That is like backwards semi-compatibility, or, you know, there's a discussion that needs to be had if that were to occur. I don't think it will.
Yeah. I'm hoping not, because we're being laughed at. If they're claiming backwards compatibility, but then the small print is you can't play your save. Like,
yeah, you know, on Android, you have the really cool transfer device. I can only speak to Android. I can't speak to iPhone. But you get a new tablet. It brings up a QRC code on your old tablet. You friggin' literally take a picture, and your new tablet is now your old tablet. And it just does everything. Everything. I would love to have Switch, have an app on the Switch. You push a button, brings it up. You're able to switch that way. Also sign in and switch if you want to that way, a little bit slower. I would love that kind of thing. And then you just make the transfer as seamless as humanly possible.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm still expecting like a cumbersome save transfer.
What about 80?
Weird
what about an
system?
80 code? Remember the old SNES games where you had like symbols?
Yeah,
what if they give
like,
give you 80
copy
symbols?
Some code that you have to like input manually
each game. It's
for
like,
each game.
And then because you don't know the names, because they wouldn't tell you the names, you'd make them up. So I remember my friends and I would have, you know, some type of jargon for whatever it meant. We'd be like, bug, butterfly wings, you know, Mobius strip, blah, blah, blah. And then if a new friend came over, they're like, what the fuck's he talking about? This is like, I don't understand. You have to retranslate everything for the new person. So yeah, man, it's exciting to get a bigger screen on it too, guys, because I really enjoy the Switch One as a device, light device for game playing. It's great, but it's the screen is just right there on the raggedy edge of being a little small for me. Not as big as the new ones. I don't know if you guys saw CES. You got Claw, which is going to have an 11-inch screen. That is
massive, dude.
So I've been testing the handhelds for the last 2 years. I've like over 500 hours of handheld gameplay on all kinds of devices, including the controllers that go around tablets. And I've tested the 11-inch. That is a massive, pretty uncomfortable situation. It really never feels the right distance. It's just massive. I like the idea. They're going for it. I also like the fact that most of these companies are doing a big one, and they also have the small ones. You know, so it's like if you want the 11-inch, but here's how bad it is, guys. They actually were talking about the 11-inch screen and started talking about if you want, you can have two players, one person holding it and controlling it, and another person with a controller. I'm like, okay, if we are quite literally telling somebody your screen is so big that a suggestion would be to have somebody looking over your shoulder to play that fucker, we are in a really weird world, man.
And by the way, portable, like in what world? Like, do you have a
no
bag
world?
To get, like,
in no world. That is not
that's
portable.
A laptop.
That's like saying, I mean, a house is portable because you can put it on the back of a truck and move it at this point, the 11-inch, come on. I mean, even
a laptop is technically portable, but like, okay, what's the size of a normal laptop? 15.4? And then you got some smaller ones. And I mean, this is already starting to enter that
And
zone.
those close flat. The one problem with these devices is they have the joysticks up. That's why I was saying I wish you could have pop off. My Legion, you can pop the joysticks off, and that makes it a little safer to transfer without worrying about a joystick breaking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, dude, I love the idea of that, man. Just 11-inch. And CES was crazy this year. CES was nuts. They had the handheld. You can tell handheld exploded. Like, it exploded. Everybody. Legion had 3 devices that they're showing. One big one, which is nice, and then your 2 normal-sized ones. Claw was there. Like, it looks like handheld's really definitely becoming a thing, which is awesome. I love the idea of that. You can sort of do what you want. They had roll-upable fucking laptops with roll-up screens. They had, oh my God, what was some of the other stuff they had? There was so much. It was sort of daunting because 90% of this we won't ever see. CES has a tendency of being like, hey, this thing is being worked on, right? And we'll never,
I think LG had a new line of TVs.
Okay.
They had a different name for it. It was it's not QLED. It's
yes,
it's something
you're right.
Kind of like AI related. That they were.
Yeah, and I believe they're one of the ones that are trying out new screen types completely away from QLED. There's particular deficiencies with all of the screens types.
Yeah.
And I believe it was LG or another company. One of those 2 companies definitely did show another technology that they're looking at, which I think is awesome because all of them, as somebody who sold them, I can tell you, despite the love for any particular type of, they all have some issue somewhere, whether it be the worry of burn-in, whether it be the brightness, whether it be blah, blah, blah. And they're always trying to work those strengths out or those weaknesses out of those systems. But I like to see companies looking at other. And then Reg, and I was trying to tell Reg about the transparent screens. That's a thing, a roll-up transparent screen. I think it's 98% opaque when it turns on, meaning you'll still be able to see a little bit behind it. But as Reg was saying, it sounds like more of a, or you, Johnny, might have even said it sounds like a doctor office, or, it's more of a,
what would even be the use case, right? When you think about it.
Probably the projector market who likes having nothing in front of them unless they want to use it. As somebody who's had a projector, I understand that thought process, but
I guess, but when you think about it, most people have their desk facing a wall.
Yeah.
Or in my case, I have the wall behind me, but what I have in front is like, whatever, my living room, right? So why would I need to ever see past the monitor?
Right. Yeah.
Even
I
in
get
my
you.
case.
I get you. Yeah.
It's weird.
I would agree with that. They also had AI in everything.
Yes.
Everything. Toothbrushes.
It's the buzzword.
Pillows.
It's the new 4K.
It is. And it was so confusing. I don't know if you guys saw this, but NVIDIA. So AI means so many things to different people, right? AI could be in a game, could be a large language model for doing a ChatGPT agent. It could be a chip on your system that allows you to run those. So when NVIDIA was talking, when I can't remember his name, it's not Casper, Jensen. When Jensen was up there talking, and he was talking about AI, he was interlacing the term many times. So people are like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It's almost like you find your favorite word and you're just using it as a noun and
like
a verb.
It's lost its meaning in a way.
Yeah, and some of the stuff he was showing was awesome. But then you see one of the creepiest ones I saw. I don't know if you guys saw this, but this thing is gnarly. It's called a personal assistant, right? And it's a pendant. It's a round coin-like pendant. But listen to what it does. For 3 solid days, it records every single thing said around you so that it can use AI to translate like meetings and stuff into notes. But that is some dystopian shit. That is, you imagine walking into a room and everybody's wearing like the Ra necklace from Egypt, like they're just all sitting there like, continue speaking. You're all, fuck, I don't know if I want to talk. This is like, we're getting into some next level shit, especially laws in, can you be recorded in some nations? Can you not be recorded without your
Dude, I already get paranoid with Alexa, thinking like, it's always listening to me. Because how does it not? It has to be able to respond to the
right. Right.
command. So
and remember,
just
I don't know
freaks
if you
me out.
remember this, but they used to say that Alexa was only listening to like the last 8 words, and it was destroying the 8 words prior. So it was just waiting for that word. It was waiting for its call word, but the rest of the time it was destroying 8 words prior all the time. Like almost instead of typing out 8 words, it always had those 8, and then it just kept chopping off the back end, so no data was saved. But then we saw that that's not true, for sure. You know, there was leaks that like,
Damn.
you know, that more of that information's out there. So there you go. CES was also showing all kinds of car stuff. They were showing battery stuff. They showed something that was cool for me, which was basically mini power generators, power backups for like when I had my power loss. But they're basically panels you put on walls that you put it behind your computer, replacing the old style UPS that I think most of us are running. And instead, you know, put it behind your TV, and now you're safe to, you know, have a little power loss, and your food doesn't go bad, which is the number one cost to me impact of a power outage anyway, which is food. Because I do usually have food in the fridge, and it's like the moment the power goes out, you're boom. AI to handle battery power and saving in laptops has turned out to actually be one of the positives, where using AI to test and understand exactly when power is needed and battery efficiency is going up. So I'm really excited for something like that, especially for handhelds and shit, if they can figure out a way to, you know, to deliver that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was everywhere. CES was an interesting CES this year. It was fun to dive into, but it was also at the same time just one of those situations where you realize that, yeah, that buzzword is ridiculous. It's everywhere, you know, it's everywhere. And it's so synonymous with everything now. It just doesn't make any sense. Spetsu says, it reminds me of the early days when we were kids. It was you walk with a keyboard, I shoot with mouse. I don't know what that means exactly. But Spetsu also says it's like AR without AR. That's true. AI has been in games for a few years now with DLSS. Well, it hasn't really been in games with DLSS, but I do get what you mean. Yeah, using language models to figure out DLSS. Did you guys also, speaking of that, did you guys see DLSS 4 and what it does? So they've changed the module. They've changed a bunch of stuff around. They're saying 4 times, basically for every 1 frame, they can deliver 4. They have an injection model that should do a warp. So if it's generated 4 frames in the future for you, if you move slightly, it warps the frame that you were going to get into the new viewpoint. And they're trying to be artifact less, you know, who knows, right? But it is a nice step up. They're also using AI to clean up textures that are low res and do some texture, detail increasing. Latency will still be a thing that we're going to have to identify. But the big thing to me was they announced that their lowest level 50 card is, what was it, $459.99? Is that what it was? I think it was $459.99 for a card they say will generally work around the 4090 level. Of course, what that really means is with all those devices on, with all those systems on, DLSS 4, so it's not like it's going to deliver that native to native.
Yeah.
But I will say the price was nice because I did expect that to even be more, even with those caveats that we for sure know of. The prices being bandying around. Still expensive, by the way, if you truly want the powerful system. It is $2,000.
What was it? $1,500 for the.
I thought it was $2,000 for the highest. I thought it was $1,995. I could be wrong on that. Let me look.
I was thinking for the 580, so that not the highest model, but
the mid price. Yeah. So 590 is going to be 2,000. Then you go down from there.
Okay.
You go to 1,000. Yeah. You go to.
And the power spec was pretty damn high as well, right? And some of these cards, like above 500 watts for some of these.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a PlayStation or Xbox inside your PC. Wattage wise, it's an incredible amount of wattage that's required.
Do we know if the DLSS 4 feature is going to be locked behind the new cards or no?
I believe DLSS 4 is just for the new cards. Yeah, let me look.
I didn't see that. DLSS. I did see the comparison Digital Foundry did, and it did look like the detail was better.
It's not. DLSS 4 will be it's not just for the 50 series. They did a comparison for what? I'm sorry.
They showed DLSS 4, like some comparisons. and you could see like some stuff that was like, didn't have the detail when you looked at it. And then it was much more detailed with
the new one.
LSS4.
Did you see did you guys see their coverage of FSR4? That is a huge leap. Man, that is a massive leap in the quality for FSR. That was quite noticeable. I really like the idea of that. They needed to catch up, and it looked like they did. Moving on from there and looking at all different stuff. So we've covered the Switch. We've covered that. Let's see. What else do we got? We've covered most of CES. CES, I think when you look at CES, it's not really for us anyway. It's more for the industry and what they want to see in the future, that kind of stuff. We saw a new cooling technology that Amutski has always talked about. He loves the idea of it, which is that it's a no fan cooling solution for maybe in the future for maybe not graphics cards, but memory and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool. Nitro Blaze, like I said, 11-inch handheld. They had a bunch of animals that you could buy that were AI, like an AI comfort animal was the way I described it. But they look like furry animals that you could carry with you and have AI in them. Everything's got AI in it. That's the thing. It's just absolutely crazy.
What were those little like companions that figure things that you could buy that would like speak to you, cheer you on as you game and stuff?
Yeah. So that was the other part of AI that definitely got discussed, which was AI bosses and AI companions. And 2 or 3 companies are trying to sort of champion this. I didn't mind this too much because what we've seen hasn't infected gaming yet to see if it does. But they were showing somebody playing a shooter, and they had an AI companion with them who would like mark items, who would like fire at enemies. Didn't really seem anything other than a normal companion you would see in any game, like Division when you go in a group with other people, except it was using some fuzzy logic kind of stuff. But that was definitely buzzword kind of thing. They did also show a boss. I don't know if you guys saw this. They showed this video, and they were like, hey, here's the first AI boss. So this boss was watching 4 people attack it. And if you attack in the same way, it can change up its way of attacking, and it can sort of see the enemies. It's not, listen, they said it was AI, but it's like you can actually do that with scripting. You can actually do that normal. It's just that they're trying to move some of that to AI to make it a little softer and feel a little more organic. But then the big question came up, would you want a raid boss in WoW to completely adjust their tactics? Because some of what goes on in WoW, not some, most of it is the grind to get the exact thing you need to take on that boss in WoW, right? So I don't know, man. I think a game with all AI bosses would be fun though. Like separate. Don't adjust my game over here, but let me play against these bosses that change it up all the time. But AI's smarter than us, right? So all you're really going to have to do is dumb the damn thing down so that we can beat it. That's
but I think it's not only like can we beat it, it's also there is a certain satisfaction in learning
the patterns.
A boss. Learning the patterns, figuring out solutions to problems like, hey, I'm always put in this situation with this boss. How can I work around that? And if it's always a moving target, it just wouldn't really be the same.
Yeah, I agree. I love the idea because, hey,
for some games, maybe that's the thing that would,
juice.
Exactly.
I don't want your juice in
not
my milk.
Every.
If I've already, if my milk is WoW, just don't get your juice in it. That's gross. Let me, let us experience that on the side. You are right about. See, that's the thing about some of these games. Like you'll play a Dark Souls game and maybe you have a boss that's pretty variable in what they do. That sort of fits a Dark Souls, or it fits a game of that kind of requirement of skill, which is a lot of reflex. But if you go to a game that isn't about reflex and they're just changing shit up, after a while you're like, I'm not quite sure. It's already hard enough, right? A lot of these games are already hard enough. So put it on the side. Let us see it. I like the general idea, but come on, man. Like, just getting the shit kicked out of us doesn't seem like it'd be the funnest thing in the world. And then what do you have? You have basically the boss saying, I kick the shit out of these guys. But they're already able to. So it doesn't really fit. What I want to do is give all these guys Twitter accounts and shit so they can find out who you are and post it on Twitter, and the AI boss can post about beating your ass and be like,
just shit talk
Eric, Johnny, and Silver tried to take me on again 345 times,
Nice
guys.
try today, Carrot.
Nice try, biatch. Yeah. Looking at this, I also
you want
saw
a more interactive version of the old Unreal Tournament bots. Then
yeah. Instead of multi-kill, they're like, dude, we smoked these guys. It was no big deal, man. In fact, I only had one AI invisible hand on the mouse. The rest of the time, I was just watching a show.
Dude, the worst would be if the boss actually becomes easier when you die to it. So, like, you know how in some games they
skill-based matchmaking almost.
Yeah, so like, you know, some games when you lose to a boss, you die to a boss, it says, "Hey, do you want to turn the difficulty down?"
Right.
And it pisses me off because no, I don't. Let me play the game and, you know, figure this out, right? But if they did it automatically, like, you know, the boss is just becoming easier to react to you dying to it, so you end up beating it. But I would hate that. That would be horrible because you wouldn't have control over it.
Yeah, yeah, it just doesn't.
Let's not give ideas.
Well, no, well, true, but I think the idea is in a new game. I'm okay. Like Half-Life used to do this. They used to show the AI in Half-Life where you'd smash a box, crabs would come out, and then some guys would be in the room, and the AI was able to do a good number of things. Let the AI on the side do something in a game that's a sandbox. You know, show me a sandbox shooter where that AI is adjusting to me dynamically. Great.
Or like a horror game where part of the horror is that, you know, the thing is continuously adapting to you and hunting you down or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. What have you guys been playing this week? Have you guys played anything? Have you guys been diving into games at all, or have you sort of taken the time off? Like Silver, have you been playing anything?
Yeah, I have a little bit. I've been really since December. I've been diving back into Sea of Thieves. A fair amount, and I also started revisiting Dragon's Dogma 2. That's the two main games I've been playing.
With Dragon's Dogma 2, are you switching things up, or are you sticking to one like class?
I started over. Originally I wanted to try and record a playthrough, but I've been having issues with shadow play for a while now, where I always used to record with Shadowplay, but now for whatever reason, Shadowplay refuses to save my audio options.
Oh, damn!
And it keeps reverting to a different mic, and I can't switch it back to my actual mic. So that turned out to be impossible, but I still went ahead and just played anyway.
If you don't use it, I can always walk you through OBS because OBS now uses Shadowplay's codec. If you need help. But it is
maybe.
PC. Okay, yeah, it is PC. It obviously won't do console.
No, I'm playing on PC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you ever want help with that, I can help you because I've had the same issue with Shadowplay. It used to be my de facto, and now it's a disaster. So I've switched the codec over to OBS and just said, screw it.
Half the time it won't work for me.
Dude, it'll just give you an X. It'll be like X. You'll hit, or it'll say, recording started, recording saved. And you're like, what? What the fuck? Like, what are you doing? And it randomly chooses permission shit. So it's all over the place. With Dragon's Dogma, which class did you say you were right now?
I'm still going with Fighter.
Gotcha. I enjoyed Fighter a tremendous amount, which is weird because he's generic as shit when you think about it, but he was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the parries are just satisfying.
Yeah. And then you told us prior to this you were doing some Indiana, it sounds like.
Yeah, but I haven't gotten very far into it still. But yeah, I have been playing a little bit of Great Circle and enjoying it. Also, why I'm wearing an indie jacket.
Exactly. We're rocking the indie garb. What is holding you back from like diving full into Indiana Jones? Is it interest or is it just time?
Just time, really. It's nothing specific. Just other interests sort of pulling me away. Yeah, like I've been enjoying my time with it, so it isn't anything with the game really. It's just other things.
Yeah, just getting the time to sit down. What about you, Johnny? What have you been playing this week?
So I actually got together with a friend to play Last of Us for the first time. She hadn't played it, and she wanted to like play the game and then watch the show. So that's been really cool, returning to that. And yeah, it's cool to play like it's not technically couch co-op because it's not co-op, but you're like
Right. Yeah.
sitting on the couch, right? You got some snacks, you're having a good time, and you're just like passing the controller over and reacting to stuff. So that was super cool. And I hadn't done that in a very long time, like just sitting with a friend.
You making
IRL.
it communal. Yeah.
Make it communal was super cool. So that was awesome. And I've been playing a lot of House Flipper 2, which has been like my happy place. You know, after work, I kind of jump in there. I can listen to music, listen to a podcast, talk to you guys in the Discord. It's very nice. It's a very nice feeling of turning a house that's a complete like pigsty into a pristine, clean, boom, deliverable. Yeah, I really enjoy it. And playing some League of Legends. There's a big new season, right, that came out with a bunch of exciting stuff for those of us who play the game. It's been fun as well.
Yeah, I watched you make a super clean house by deleting the roof.
Yeah, it was a bit too clean, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's a bit, you went a little too far. You were a little too anal on the cleaning on that one.
We made it work.
We did make it work. You sold it for 11. You sold the house. You still got 11 grand. What do you call profit on that house because you had fixed other stuff, right? Isn't that how we figured it out? Yeah. That was funny because when you're in there, so we were talking about this, like, you try not to get depressed if something bad happens, but it's like we heard Johnny go, guys, and he was streaming for us, and he deleted the house and House Flipper, and there was really no undo button that we could really figure out. So he was stuck with this house he had spent quite a while on, and we were all like, oh man, yeah, this is cool A-frame house, blah, blah, blah. And then he deleted the roof and was like, oh, fuck. But I think because of the other improvements he had made, he sold it to somebody who wanted a fixer-upper, and he made 11 grand off of it.
Yeah, so the rooms were actually clean. They just, there just wasn't any roof. Yeah. But dude, it was one of those beautiful, like, Scandinavian houses with the big roof that's a triangle that goes all the way to the ground, right?
We call them A-frames here.
A-frames?
Yeah, A-frame.
Yeah, so it's just one thing, right?
Yes,
one big block.
Yeah.
And that whole thing got removed.
Yeah. It was awesome too because it looked really good, and then the next house you got had like holes in the roof and stuff. And we were like, well, they're halfway there already. Johnny can just remove the rest and just House Flipper's awesome though, right? Like House Flipper
good,
2.
Man.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Very good.
Great sim game. Also a fun game to watch somebody stream because really no two people are alike in the fix-ups. So it's like the cleanup's one thing.
You got your
really
system,
but you've got your system. Yeah,
it's cool.
It's awesome to watch somebody go through that, especially for the first time, because I always see the differences, like how different you are and where you place things or what you want to build versus me. And then we were laughing about how it's so easy in those games to build something you think looks awesome. You have this awesome idea. You're like, yellow and black. Hey, those are the colors of ACG. I'll make a house out of that. And then you see it later and you're like, it's a giant fucking bee. This looks horrendous. Whatever your color
It is funny
scheme.
too when you think it's a good idea, but then other people looking at it go like, what the fuck have you done, Johnny, with this room? Like, it's preposterous.
Yeah. Or they're nice about it and you're like, hey man, I got this. And they're like, oh, hey. And that's it. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay.
Or they will say like, interesting choice of wallpaper.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Solar in chat, when he either disagrees or is doing other stuff, he'll be like, noted. So you can tell, like when you show something, they're like, noted. That's interesting. You're like, okay, copy that. It's not good.
It might be liberating not to care about taste.
Yeah,
That's a backhanded compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's taste is different, and some people different levels too. Maybe none, but yeah, House Flipper is awesome, especially for the price. It's one of those games that the cost to experience is like super low. I mean, you can play that game for fucking 80 hours and not even come close to hitting even close to the same stuff as somebody else. Lindsay says, I've been playing House Flipper 2 and Fast Food Simulator. Rogerio says playing Civ 15.
Holy, he's like a full
by
8 titles ahead. Yeah.
I don't think he means Civ 15. And Gandhi says, oh, no, he is. Okay, it's a continuation of a joke. I was so confused there. And Gandhi says he's displeased with your efforts in achieving world peace, so he nukes you. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you now. Sorry, buddy. I misread that. I was like, whoa, wait, what? How far in the future is he? When it comes to games, I've been playing Homefront: The Revolution. Bunch of us in chat decided to just sort of go through a playthrough of that, so we're all playing Homefront: The Revolution. Great game. Didn't release to the most kudos, but as a B-level shooter, and with the ability to transform weapons at any time, so you can take like a handgun, turn it into a submachine gun by taking the magazine off the fucking the barrel and switching all that kind of stuff out. That's a really good clip, whichever. And that's cool to be able to play that. And then some more Starfield, a couple games for NDA stuff. We're starting to get into the review season. It's a little hodgepodge now, because I think I'm just going to go out there and say I don't think Shadows is the only game looking at delaying. There's been some chatter about other games sort of looking at release dates. So we'll just have to see how that all that translates overall. But
yeah.
What other games? Let's see. I beat Citizen Sleeper 1, and that was a game, man. Have you guys done Citizen Sleeper?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So it would be completely disingenuous to say it's like Disco Elysium in space, because nothing like that. But that was how it was described to me. It's
really.
It was.
Okay.
It was. Yeah. I like it. I liked it a lot. I liked the dice system for the skills. I thought that was really cool. I was a little constrained by the ability. This is going to sound really weird, because you don't need to move around, but the viewpoint, and I was always it's hard to describe, but I was always like, man, I wish I could control a little bit more and see what I want to see a little bit more, because you're really zooming into particular places and then zooming back out, zooming into a particular spot to make a narrative choice. But I did like those narrative choices. I thought that was very cool. It is about paranoia and overarching stuff and dystopian stuff. I guess when I first heard of that originally, I thought it was like Citizen Sleeper in some way, you're being spied upon by the military, or I don't know why. That's what I originally thought it was like some kind of waking up, hacking systems to find data about like governments or something like that. And it was totally once I saw somebody play it, I was like, oh, that's different. That's not what I expected.
Yeah.
And dived in. And I dived in because Citizen Sleeper 2 is coming out. What did you think of number one, Silver? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Like, what were some of the things?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Like when it came out. Though honestly, I don't remember too much of it these days. But yeah, I remember liking it a lot. And I thought the Blade Runner aspect of it,
yes, yeah,
worked really well, of casting you as the replicant sort of on the run. And yeah, constantly paranoid about being in potential danger, who you can trust, who you can't trust, and trying to want to stay as low as possible and not get detected.
yeah,
those were elements I thought worked really, really well. And yeah, I mean, I guess I can kind of see a parallel with Disco Elysium in that it's very, very
narrative based.
No, it's very, very easy to get screwed early.
Oh, true. Yeah, that is true.
In that in Citizen Sleeper as well, with like a or dice roll or whatever, on the skill checks. So there is a decent amount of like luck and randomness involved in whatever playthrough, and that also helps to shape whatever narrative you're building in that playthrough. And I mean, part of the appeal of the game is that you don't know if it's gonna be 15 minutes or an hour or however long it's gonna run for, and then trying to make the most of that playtime.
Yeah, I like the dice system. I like the graphics. I mean, it's definitely an acquired taste. It's not something I would say run out and buy at full price or something like that. But it's enjoyable as a narrative novel based, with choices, and pretty dark. I will say that. Robert says, anyone been playing Arma?
It's very much cyberpunk.
Yeah, very. Anybody been playing Arma Reforger on the console? I played a little bit on the console. Yeah, it's I'm pretty happy with it. Also, Arma 3 last week finally got multi-core support, and it is basically like probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in Arma. A huge FPS increase, massive FPS increase. I don't know if have you tried that, Silver, at all?
Not in Arma 3. Only really the only Arma I've been doing like the last couple of months has been Reforger.
What do you think of Reforger? Were you a console or PC?
Both, though not very much on console, only like tentatively there, mostly on PC.
What have you enjoyed it? Like, has it been something that do you like better than Arma?
I don't know that I like it better. I mean, single player wise, there's certainly less content than there is for Arma 3. But like multiplayer, the combined arms and whatnot for modes for Reforger are a good amount of fun. Like running the logistics and everything, which sort of echoes Foxhole a little bit in the way that works, with some players having to run logistics to supply the war effort and whatnot. That's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I was really happy with all of those improvements. I was blown away by the improvement in FPS though with multi-core.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. Even with the most powerful system, I've always had a problem turning up the view distance very far and into simulation very far. You throw a couple AI in there and suddenly the game was, you could just see that FPS diving. And I've been messing around with it for the last couple days in this beta, and just a incredible experience when it comes to that. These are old games though, so if anybody knows, these are basically war simulation games that are heavy on the simulation part, but they have an online DM component, which is pretty cool. If you want friends to come in, you can basically...
Arma 3 is nearly 10 years old now.
Over 10 is what I think their post said about the multi-core was. I think it's like, I could be wrong on this, but I thought they said on its near its 13th year anniversary. I could be wrong on that, but I thought I read that.
I don't think it's from 2011.
You don't think it's from 2011?
I think it's from later than that.
Okay.
But maybe I'm wrong. Let me just look it up, actually.
Yeah, if you could look that up. But they're great games. They have an online component, so you can grab like 7, 8 friends and throw them into a squad. And
no, it's from 2013, so yeah, 11 years.
11 years. Okay, maybe that's what I saw. Odd number would make sense. But the ability for everybody to jump in, and one person jumps in a tank, the other person becomes a gunner, another person jumps in an A10, and they're fantastic. And then Reforger is their sort of, I guess you'd call it, snipped up, cut back a little bit version on their new engine.
It's kind of the bridge to Arma 4.
Whoops. Yeah. I thought they did a really good job with what they've done with Reforger. Reforger's like 19 or something. It was cheaper, right? It was like a good deal cheaper, if I remember right.
Yeah, it is. I think it used to be a little higher, but they cut the price down. But no, actually, no, it's not. It is actually pretty pricey. It's $40 bucks.
Oh, okay, more expensive than that. Hey, Baron, quiet. It's just me. I hit my foot.
They haven't actually cut the price yet. Yeah.
Okay, they haven't cut the price yet. And then Johnny, you had some notes in in your DM to me for the meeting today. You had said what was this about physical game sales collapsing in the UK?
Yeah, so there were some numbers about purchases for physical games in the UK. And in 2024, there was a drop of nearly 35% since 2023 of like boxed games basically sold. So that was really significant. And they also talk about like console sales. So console download sales and like services and stuff. So basically like the digital versions were up.
Okay.
And physical stuff was way down in comparison. So that was interesting. And I think it is a trend that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Based on everything we see. Reading this, I was thinking if there is a clear direction where 5-10 years from now, it will just all be digital. Is there a reason why we would want to hold on to physical games, assuming that internet is just so widespread that, you know, everybody has good internet. That's not a problem if they have to download something. Is there something about the physical game beyond the collector aspect?
No, ownership and collection is the big one. Feeling like, which sucks now, because if you do buy a game, it doesn't even mean the entire game's on that game, that DVD. And as we get bigger, physical media is just not capable of, and not, I mean, especially when Blu-ray hasn't really advanced, some of these discs, they're not going that way. Because they're not going that way, then the game companies are like, well, we can save a little money by not, you know, printing a bunch of discs that, by the way, if you do print them, if they don't sell, you're putting them in a landfill somewhere. So I don't know about it, you know, not to get into the ownership thing, because we all want to own something. Like, we all want to own, so that's not like what we're fighting against or saying doesn't matter. But I don't think it'll ever go away, because there'll always be limited run, right? There'll always be somebody who makes vinyl records.
Yeah, exactly. That was the point I was going to make as
Go
well.
for it.
Yeah,
Go
the
for
vinyl records. No, but I think you made it perfectly. Like,
but yeah, doesn't it feel like
there's still a market there, right?
Yeah, and
I mean, certainly, a lot of those vinyl enthusiasts will argue that it's not necessarily a question of nostalgia, but that they get better audio quality and better sound quality from the vinyl records than digital audio. But yeah, I think there's certainly always going to be that physical element.
Well, I have a question for you guys, because this has been bothering me. So currently, you can get NVMe and USB sticks that are massive, far in excess of a disc. My personal opinion would be that you will start to see stuff like that, because why buy a disc drive for your PlayStation, for instance, when you can buy a USB that has that game on the USB, and ownership could even be tracked via chip, whatever. But if you want a physical version, you'll get a box. It just won't be a CD DVD box anymore. It'll be a box where the USB is inside, or whatever physical media, almost like a cartridge, is inside, and that's got your game on it, if that's what you choose to do. I'm assuming people aren't demanding the CD Blu-rays continue, because that's a little weird, because there is better technologies, like Blu-ray can store more than CDs, that kind of stuff. So you might as well just have the Blu-ray, have the music on it, and you still have this thing that can hold a ton of content. I don't dive into that, so maybe there's reasons why people don't want that. Of course, if you have a CD player in your car because you're from the 1940s, makes sense. We used to we have one car with a CD player still in it, actually.
It's funny, dude, because one time, like, somebody gifted me a OST for Final Fantasy, and it came in CDs, and I was like, what the I literally don't have anything that can play this. I don't have, unless like the PlayStation itself, right, does have a optical drive, so I could plug it in there. But yeah, it's
the handheld consoles you guys talked about, they showed off at CES, they're all digital, I would assume, right?
Yeah. They had an SSD slot sometimes. Sorry, an SD slot. Some of them would have the external, or the slide in the little flash drive. But that was it. They're all digital. Because
like that would probably be, like, handheld would be one area where I would potentially see a lot of advantages for physical games, where you would be independent of like Wi-Fi and
you can play it without worrying about
exactly.
like DRM.
When you're out traveling or whatever, right?
Well, that's weirdly enough why I was sort of talking about the cartridge. Like, so let's say, I mean, it's weird we're returning back to cartridge discussion for a second. I do want to point out just how odd that is, but DRM's an issue. Online checks are an issue. We get them all the time. Nobody likes them. Nobody wants them. Usually you buy a CD, the music's on there, and you can play that anywhere, and it's yours, right? You buy a CD, it's stamped. So, like, do they go to some kind of technology where it's a flash card of some kind, and that'll install to your system, and then from then on, we'll just check some chip on it to say it's owned by you, and that's your physical media of the game, and you still have a case, and you still get your map if that's what you want. You still get your game guide. But But I mean, CDs are done, right? You don't want to handheld a fucking CD player in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like we have to move on from there. But I do think it's interesting that physical state has gone so far. I mean, you don't want a USB sticking out of your fucking handheld either. But I do like the idea that if somebody wants something physical, my assumption is they're not fighting again for a CD. They're not really fighting for the physical being in a particular format. They're fighting just for having a copy of
I think you're right.
thing.
I think most people would draw the line at having something physical that contains the game that's not dependent of like
anything
internet or downloading.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so the difference there would be either, you could have like an SD card with the game, but that's maybe okay. But if you have just like a code that you input to download the game, that I think wouldn't be okay for a lot of people.
I agree. Yeah, that wouldn't be enough. Yeah, it wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, that wouldn't be enough. I wanted to mention the PC games, because that's one where we no longer see physical releases, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think
they're the big giant titles. A lot of times even their CD is replaced by a code piece of paper. So
right. So can you still even buy like a box for like a physical version for PC games, or is that also gone?
You can, but man, it's been a long time since
right?
I saw it. Yeah, let me do something real quick. Let me just look. I'm gonna go to Amazon.
I'll do some quick research.
Yeah, because what I want to do. What's a big game that's come out recently? I'm just gonna start third
Wukong,
party.
Maybe like
no Wukong definitely. I say definitely. I shouldn't do that. Wukong CD or PC. Let's see what happens.
Maybe some beloved games do get like a physical edition.
Well, Limited Run has been doing,
Not sure.
As far as I remember, it's either Limited Run or somebody has been doing the occasional game that is day and date. They do a physical version, but yeah. Dude, it's rare. PC is ultra rare. Shit, every device I've ever bought for the PC for the last 3 gens hasn't even had a CD. I've had to buy a CD external.
Yeah, I mean, my memory is from childhood, like having the big ass PC game boxes, like Baldur's Gate or Age of Empires. You got like the big chunky box.
Seeing a physical edition of the first or the 2020 Flight Simulator.
The 2020 PC version has a disc.
Like,
what's that got? Like 18
DVD.
Blu-rays?
No, it's DVD actually.
It's DVD.
So I would assume quite a few discs. I would assume.
Holy moly, dude!
It doesn't say how many, but
son of a bitch. That's going to be a lot of DVDs.
Yeah,
man. Or it's that thing where it just installs, the Gennaro, and then if you want download, because holy Christ, that game is huge, especially even with not the special stuff. But if you want, the high res everything, and that game is massive. But it's cool. It's cool they did that. I mean, certainly nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, but my question there at the end of all that was like, if it happened for PC that we basically drifted away completely from physical, is that not also a natural progression
for consoles?
For consoles?
Yeah, when consoles now, they are mini PCs and stuff like that. But I think that the idea, so hear me out here for a second, because I do agree with you that is the tact that's being taken. But I do want to say that you don't just make one other drug legal because another drug people don't like is legal. Like you know what I mean? You don't just say this is already happening, so therefore we're just going to let this roll. I think for a lot of people, what they're worried about is that we have gone that way. That is it has been a
hence
pattern.
the resistance
that,
in a way.
of that continued. Yeah. And which I understand, because it's ownership. You do want what people want is something in their hand that holds the full contained thing. And by the way, I agree with anybody who says that if you get a DVD that's just got the executable on it, that is not the same as physical ownership. That is not. If it requires the internet to download something that works, what?
I am trying to get the focus back. My bad.
Oh, no worries. I thought you were trying to show me a new weightlifting supplement you're taking. I don't think that is the equivalent of physical media and a replacement for it. It has to be a working version of the game in some way that you get on whatever physical media. And then if you ignore CDs and DVDs, because I think they're gone, I think that kind of optical media is gone. We've gone, that's sort of the end line for that. I would have no issue with a Nintendo style cartridge that has the game. And if you want that, you want that. You're going to have to pay for that version it installs. And
I liked your idea of a USB thumb drive or something. The only thing is maybe it's too slow, right? Like the rate of transfer.
Well, USB 4 is blinding. I mean, USB 4 is insane. So if we just went forward with the USB, I mean, currently USB is the way to go. I just don't like the idea of a bunch of thumbsticks in my fucking house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be in cases because I also don't have my CDs laying in fucking floor anywhere. So I can't just bitch about it. Go ahead.
I also feel like to me, one of the distinctions between that's really still left between PC and consoles has been that consoles are sort of a physical media station
for the most part, or
where you still have the Blu-ray discs and CDs or whatever that you can play there. That's certainly the station where I use that media still is on my consoles. So I mean, obviously that's kind of going away as they've become as the discless versions are becoming more popular. So maybe that is going away in the future, but to me, that's just still a huge component of the console is the idea of it as a physical media station.
And what's weird is they've even gone to the digital versions with multiple platforms without that DVD. So it's definitely, it's declined dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, especially with how ubiquitous streaming is these days, right?
Yeah. So as of 4 years ago, 90% of all gaming revenue was not physical. So it's dumped completely. It's absolutely cratered. And I also believe the consoles feel like a physical device that's where I expect the drive, which is what Johnny was saying. PC is one thing, consoles are the other. You sort of expect the physical for the console still, at least I do. And I'm not going to buy a digital version of anything. Like if PS5 Pro didn't have a disc in it, but there's a reason why the PS5 Pro disc sales are through the roof, because if people want the PS5 Pro, they want a disc.
Yeah.
It's just something that you go with. But yeah, it's cratered, and it is, for all intents and purposes, for most users, it's gone. And so it's like, if you're looking at that now, even those numbers are way higher than I thought. I didn't think it would be anywhere near 90. And that was many years ago. I see why companies aren't putting it in, but I still like it. I still like my disc, or I still like my console to have a disc drive. I don't know why, but I do. I like the idea of physical ownership.
For me, there's a very clear reason why, because I don't want my collection of DVDs and CDs and Blu-rays to become completely useless.
There you go. You're talking outside of gaming, like your music. Absolutely, because I still have a huge physical disc media library,
and I don't want to go through the trouble of having to hook up a separate Blu-ray player
and funny enough, for that the PS5 is the only device in which I can watch my Blu-rays. I have Fringe, a couple other shows box sets.
So do I. Yeah.
And the only way I have of watching them is on the PS5, actually.
Let me tell you a sad thing right now, Johnny. I still buy the box sets, and most of the box sets just have a disc, or they have the discs, and then they'll have a code to watch it digital, and I'll watch it digital most of the time, which is even worse, because I don't want to go back to the menu and switch or whatever, and there'll be
there is something about the box,
I've got the box, but I just don't take the box off the shelf a lot of times, because I'm like, I already have I sort of want to reward whoever's out there who made it, like in some nebulous world.
Absolutely.
I'm sort of hoping that guy gets $5. But go ahead.
I mean, also just on a personal level, I found that the disc, the resolution quality and whatnot of the disc, particularly Blu-rays, is often superior to the resolution quality of the streams. Yeah.
Yeah, I think streaming's gotten much better, but I think there's buffering. There's, it's not there. It's not on your system. It's being loaded in, so you're always going to have those issues. However, I also have issues with some Blu-rays not reading, because you have a disc that's slightly old and you have physical media damage, So it's like, no matter what, you can't you can't really come up with a perfect solution that's gonna, I would say, elegantly feed every single person's desire. But I would say that the idea of physical media switching away from CDs and DVDs to whatever, to something along the lines of, like I said, some kind of chip, I'm fine with, because as long as it contained the full thing, because that is a problem. There are a lot of games that do go online to grab the rest, and I don't mean the rest like, let's say, Flight Sim grabbing high-res textures. I'm talking about the game is not on there fully, and there's no requirement that it be. So how do you fight that? Other than,
at least we don't get the like the film's tape sprawl we used to get with like the VHS tapes, where we had to like physically wind them up because the film is sprawled everywhere inside the machine. Yeah.
I definitely had those issues. The only issues I've had with Blu-ray a couple times are basically, just an old Blu-ray doesn't like, certain devices, which unfortunately that's sort of a thing with Blu-ray and stuff like that, but I still buy them. Yeah, I've got like Johnny, I've got a couple, what are they, 10 DVD Blu-ray collections sometimes for a TV show. Like Supernatural would be, I don't even know. I own Supernatural, and I'm pretty sure it's like a absolute shit ton of discs, but do I watch those? Of course not. Like, of course not. I've got,
you just watch it on,
I watch it on
whatever.
Yep. I watch it on whatever I've already got. I mean, I would watch it if I couldn't find, I wouldn't get another streaming service, but if I've already got it, I'll be like, hey, we'll just do the streaming service for this. But I do like I said, I like the idea that Joe Blow, the guy who worked on some audio cleanup on episode 3, gets 50 cents. So,
and there is something intangible that's very human. That's like, you like to look at your shelf and see some of the representations of things you love, whether it's like a little figurine of a game you like, or a box set of a show you loved. Yeah, it matters to us. I think it's just clearly a thing.
I like books too, and I have a bunch of physical, but I read them almost always.
Dude, I have some
electric.
I have some that I listened on Audible,
but you still bought.
Bought the book, like you said. Yeah, I want the author to get $5, and also, I like the like, the physical.
Yeah, I'm not somebody who worries about the environment too much. I do. I see it.
Sure.
So sometimes I'm like, I don't really need the book. Like maybe I shouldn't get it, but at the same time,
for a special book, like if it's.
Yeah, I have too many though. I mean, I've shown you guys pictures of the one room where we store stuff, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, and I feel that scratch in the itch finally when I do get rid of it. Like, we'll go and I'll donate a bunch of shit, but guess what happens? I would say less than a month after I donate a bunch of shit, I will go find the list of donations I did and end up buying 3 or 4 of those things back over again. It happens every
it looks like the back of a shop where you have all the stuff stored that you pull out for the shop itself.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, man. That's exactly what it is. But it'll be interesting to see where we go in the future. I don't like the idea of getting an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo that doesn't have a physical media slide area to put stuff in. Digital only is.
No, I don't either. Like that would make me seriously hesitant to get one in the first place, because that is a huge appeal of just that.
And I'm glad you brought up that other stuff as a player. It's quite useful.
Because at that point, really, it's just a PC kind of, and at that point, there's no real advantage to it. Compared to my PC, really.
You're renting a signal from the internet twice. At that point, it's like you have no quite, you have no clear idea if that's going to end up turning out good for you or bad for you, and most of the time turning out bad, because people have talked about the games that go off when their servers go offline too. That's mostly online, but I mean, we have had some single player games, or you have the IP. So here's the other thing. Forza Horizon's a good example. Forza Horizon pays a bunch for their licenses. Forza Horizon, they've taken off stores. You can still play it, right? But it's taken off store shelves because of the licenses. We've seen this with a ton of racing games. That's the other thing too, is like something that has nothing to do with, let's say, IPs or anything like that. Or sorry, it does have to do with IPs. It doesn't have to do anything with like physical media or an online server. It has to do with the IP itself, and those are being taken away, which I know pisses a lot of people off.
That's always been one of the things that's really that I've struggled to understand with video games, why that's specific to video games.
To video games?
Yeah, where movies don't get like their licenses revoked or outdated or whatever. For musics, they have licensed in their soundtracks or whatever. But for some reason, video games do.
That's a perfect point.
They only run on like a very particular span of time.
And we know Alan Wake was one that was impacted by that when the IP for the music in the original Alan Wake was causing issues, so they had to take it off the shelves until they figured out digital shelves until they figured out the IP situation. But movies, they're usually just made or not made. I don't know. Remember though, back in the day, Silver, when racing games wouldn't even have the real cars because the IP license owners were so worried about like a Mercedes being wrecked, and then they didn't want to be in games with destruction.
Not just cars, but like I remember the first FIFA game didn't have the license for the players, so the players would all have these euphemisms for names, even though they would be like representations of those players, but they would all be named weirdly. And like ISS, International Superstar Soccer, did the same thing for years as well.
It was called ISS.
Yes.
International
Superstar Soccer. Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about a little bit is Sony's Smell-O-Vision. I don't know why people went off the rails on this, but it was just a patent for, like the ability to smell stuff, which to me is absolutely disgusting in games.
And to me, that's been there since the 70s.
Yeah, these patents have been everywhere, and people are freaking out, going like, "Oh, Sony's looking at making like smellable games or whatever." It's not that. I love to tease that idea. It wasn't that. It was more along the lines of just, it was more along the lines of another patent that just pops up, right? You get a patent that pops up, and you're just like, "Here's the way it goes." While we were talking, though, I did see some news just pop up. So pretty much exactly what we just talked about. Switch 2 reportedly getting Halo and another big Xbox game, with Microsoft said to be a very big supporter. This is just another leak from another leaker person. I don't know their...
It'll be really interesting, though, because like Metroid Prime 4 is set to release this year. I think so. How is that timing going to work out with the Switch 2 and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. It's just one of those things where everything will happen. Every game will be decided when it's made. Like, where do we put it?
Right.
It's not going to be instant for everything. That's ridiculous. And teams aren't even big enough for that. And every person that I've talked to who is in the know, we talked about this a couple months ago, I don't know why they're just talking about it now, but for sure, Microsoft, other companies are looking at Switch as a place to, feature. I don't know why it became this weird thing about just PlayStation. I thought that was quite weird, where the idea was like, oh, just PlayStation will be a place with the new systems. And everything I'd been hearing was that, even internally, developers were excited about the possibility of, looking at a third. If you're going to do one, you might as well look at two. You might as well identify another place to possibly put your games. So it's definitely been weird. I'm glad to see another person sort of talking about that, but everything I've seen is that they are looking at, especially Microsoft. If Microsoft goes anywhere, they would love to say when the Nintendo Switch pops up to be like, that's an Xbox. And just put, that's their new campaign slogan. So Abzy gifted 20, the best ACG Gaming Podcast. What's up, sir? How you doing? Thank you very much. I just saw that. I appreciate it very much. I hope you're doing well. He's up right now. Let's see. It's 12:27 for him. It's probably 11:30. And fucking what time would it be? What time is it where you are, Abzy?
I think it's like 10:30 for him.
Oh, is it only 10:30 for him?
I think he's like an hour ahead of me.
Oh, is he? I always feel bad for you guys, man. I show up and I'm like, I'm actually, like, okay, I roll in at a perfect time and you guys are like missing out on dates and stuff. Like, all right, whatever, man. It's cool, Jeremy. We'll show up for your podcast, whatever. But absolutely appreciate it very much. We'll have to get you on one of these as well. I am the date. Wow. There's a lot of things I expected to hear in my life, and I never, ever, since I got married, expected to hear that again.
It's been a date all along.
It's been a date. Well, I put out really good, too. So you guys, you're going to get laid.
Why do you think we keep coming back?
Yeah, maybe coming back.
Oh, God.
All right. Well, things went weird. That's all. That was all that I should have expected and more. But no, I'm really excited to see that kind of stuff with the third parties looking at Switch 2 and stuff like that, especially if it is in any way technically performant. And seems like we're right there with everybody sort of coming together when it comes to devices, and you can sort of get your game on everything and sort of jump in there and play whatever you wanted to play. Dominic says the people upset about exclusivity becoming less exclusive are very silly. I agree overall, but I also understand the desire for exclusivity because a lot of developers end up focusing on one particular system and gain some expertise and into the idiosyncrasies of that particular system, and those can showcase stuff. So I have no real issue with the idea of exclusives at all, in fact. But I also like the idea of like Microsoft looking at games that aren't selling anymore. They're like, hey, this game's not selling a bunch anymore, but it's a fairly popular game. How about we throw this somewhere else? Sony is doing the same thing with
can
PC.
we optimize the monetization somehow or whatever?
Yeah, right. Can we port this and get 1,000 or 100,000 more people interested in the next game that's coming out in a series or something like that? It's in a weird way, it's almost like the remasters, except I actually feel this is better. A good deal than a remaster or a remake. I actually think the idea of moving it to another system later is, to me, more sustainable and overall, weirdly enough, sort of a better financial prospect of being like, this entire ecosystem doesn't have this game. It's just not there. So instead of going with some kind of, port or sorry, not port, but a remake, you go with a port.
It'll be interesting to see if we ever get numbers for what opening Sea of Thieves to PlayStation users has done for that game.
I mean, all the Microsoft titles were number 1, 2, and 3, and 4 on the PlayStation Store. They beat out the PlayStation ones when they released. I don't know for how long, but they were super high up there. They were doing quite well for those months. But you are right. I don't know if we have any numbers. Probably not. Right? Microsoft doesn't report numbers anymore. I don't think we'll ever know the exact numbers unless somebody leaves. A developer maybe leaves and we get that data. So I don't quite know, but I know they did really well, man. Because what are the 3 that came out? It was Game of Thrones. It was Sea of Thieves. I do that all the time with Sea of Thieves and Game of Thrones. But it was Sea of Thieves. It was Grounded, and it was. Did Hi-Fi Rush come out on PlayStation?
I don't know.
I feel like there was one more.
Not sure.
Yeah. I do think the other discussion is when you start looking at their premieres, I actually think this is less of a deal with Halo. I don't think Halo will, but ignore that. But if you get a Forza, something that's intrinsically known as Xbox, when do you release that on other systems? Same thing with Sony.
Yeah.
When do they?
Would you send that up against Gran Turismo, right?
Exactly. Would they want you to? That's the other thing. Would the platform holder, whether it be Nintendo, Sony doing something on Nintendo?
Yeah.
Pentiment. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Pentiment. And yeah, that Pentiment. I wonder how that did. Hey, Pentiment, such an odd game. Even if it got 10 more sales, that's a plus. Because I don't know I don't know what Pentiment sold. But it's such a unique game. And, it wasn't even for me. And I still look at it and go, God damn, I hope we get more of these. Do
you think that Sony is going towards, because they've embraced, like multiple platforms now. They have the model of it comes out on PlayStation, and then 1-2 years later they're happy to put it out, right? For most of their games lately, it's been that way. Mm-hmm. It's like God of War, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima. So the question is the next step going to be day and date for at least some of those games, do you think? Or Sony? Is that a line that they wouldn't cross?
I think that's a line that they're nowhere near ready to cross yet.
I think Silver just said it right, though. He said something slightly different. They are nowhere near ready to cross it. But if financials continue the way they are, listen, all these companies have to change, and we bitch that companies don't change, and then when we do, we bitch they change.
The real question is how much, right?
The real question is how much. Remember, Sony said streaming wasn't a thing, wasn't going to be a way to deliver games. Boom, they have a streaming service. We don't believe in subscription services. Boom, we got a subscription service. That's sort of the way you want it.
And 2 years ago, everyone was talking about NFTs.
Yeah. Things come and go. But come on, let's just they will do whatever Switch works out, and they have to do in the future. If consoles were to crater for some reason, or the sales of exclusives on whatever system were to crater because people just aren't biting in. If you are a game maker, which they are, and so is Microsoft, and so is Nintendo, then you do have to look. And by the way, Nintendo, I believe the same thing. Will it happen? Probably not. But let's say Switch 2 doesn't set the world on fire. What do? We are in a time frame where continually keeping developers employed and making games is more important. I personally have almost always believed this, but more important than the exclusivity part. So if you're looking at a team of 200 or 300 people and their game didn't sell well, but you start looking at the other ports and you go, you know what? If we put this everywhere, we can keep this dev team working to make their next game. That is a really weird situation to say we have chosen to not do that. Like that, you know what I mean? That's especially when you have TV and streaming services and you have Steam and you have these other places to release games. But I do like the idea of a platform from each one of these. I have no issue with that. Like, people are worried about an OEM from Microsoft. Like, oh my God, what if Microsoft has Lenovo make their shit? What if the WMR was already OEM? And, VR didn't necessarily take off the way people wanted. But if you look at it, what is Lenovo? It is a Windows OEM hardware device. I mean, it's Windows. It's run on a Windows. It's like, so when you make the next step of what if they delivered a low-end hardware idea to every other manufacturer and said, you have to deliver this and it has to be compatible in all ways, blah, blah, blah. I'm not bothered by that. In fact, I think it's smart. Why should Microsoft foot the bill for making a console that makes $1 a console, or they lose money per console, and instead embrace what Steam does? Subsidize a new Lenovo. You're making 30% of every single game that sells. And let's just really call a spade a spade. Steam Decks are a hardware version of Steam's library. That's all it is. Sorry, but I mean, you can love or hate the Steam Deck, but that is quite literally what that device is. It is an inroad to their store. And that's where Microsoft and Sony want the same thing. The Portal was an attempt at that, a terrible attempt, just an absolutely shitball attempt, but it was an attempt nonetheless.
A good point.
Let's see. Reading some of these chats, Absy had said something about, he had said that Forza would do gangbusters on the other systems. Yeah, I would. I don't care about day one, but I do think Forza is good, and some people say it's not because they own the other console, which we saw with Sea of Thieves releasing on both.
Yeah.
I in the back of my brain, because I'm a huge stand, or a huge stand for fucking Forza, I would sort of love to see what Forza would do if it was released on everything.
Break down the silos.
Yeah. Dude, Forza's an incredible racing series. It's had its misses like everybody does, but when you own a PlayStation and, you have Gran Turismo and then your third parties, if there's a Forza there, that's a big get. It's just like if Microsoft suddenly had Gran Turismo. Not going to happen.
I mean, especially Horizon.
Yeah, especially Horizon, a game that I used to just smash the shit out of. And now when I look at it now, I'm like, wow, boy, it's nice to be wrong. Because I was wrong as shit on Forza Horizon. I was like, who's going to want to play this? How are you going to do the races? This just seems like such a bad idea. And, man, talk about wrong.
I mean, just for me personally, the last two motorsport games were huge disappointments.
The specific motorsport, the race
Forza
ones.
Motorsport,
yeah. Forza Horizon has definitely taken the Forza name. I mean, I think when people say,
certainly for me they have.
I think when people say Forza, they usually think
true.
of Forza Horizon. But yeah, I would agree, it would do gangbusters on other systems. And this is something that we've been talking about. I mean, be prepared, because it's like shit's changing. Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, you will see games on other devices you will not expect. And pretty much from everybody. Would Nintendo do this? I absolutely believe they would. If somehow they were cratering and, it's like you look at a Steam you know, you look at a PC version of a Mario and you realize you can sell 8 billion copies of it.
One area where I really don't see any crossover is between Nintendo and Sony, because
Nintendo games on Sony devices.
Yeah, or vice versa. I just don't see two huge Japanese conglomerates like that sort of
working it
together
out somehow.
No, I think they're too territorial for that in that regard.
I see Sony putting games for some reason on a Nintendo device before an Xbox device.
Yeah, no, that I don't.
They had a choice. You would see them doing Nintendo before Microsoft, or Microsoft before Nintendo?
I would see them doing Microsoft before Nintendo, yeah.
Interesting, because of the Japanese, conglomerates. Okay, that's a highly interesting point.
Because of the internal territorial disputes there, yeah.
I think...
And then the competitiveness of the Japanese market.
Yeah, and their history. Nintendo and Sony's particular history. I mean, Sony is in the game-making environment because of a bad relationship, with Nintendo. But
right.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I personally think that they both want to treat Nintendo like that. Like I said, that, Nintendo's the girl that just can't decide. And I personally would see, for whatever reason, I just see a conglomeration of you suddenly start getting Astrobot in Smash Brothers, that kind of stuff. Like, it wouldn't surprise me too much. What I did like, we saw Ubisoft and Nintendo come together to make Rabbids. I would like to see more of that, because that's a game I never thought I would see. Like, never in a million years did I ever. I didn't even. First of all, I don't like Rabbids that much. Yeah, they're not a IP I even really know. And for them to come together and do an amazing title. Sony did. Big Mac says Sony did put Lego Horizon on Nintendo and not Xbox. So there you go. So Sony.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I forgot about Lego Horizons. Just going to be honest.
Yeah.
If you didn't mention that, Big Mac, I don't know if I would have ever remembered that was a game.
Yeah, I also don't know. Was that a PlayStation exclusive, or Sony, a Sony first party title? Or?
Well, it's their first party. It's Lego them. Right. So I think it's a fair point when it comes to there's a reach out there. That is the kind of stuff I just think will happen. It just won't be on Xbox. I don't know why I believe that, and I could be proven wrong. Lego Tears of the Kingdom win, Ruggiero says. Yeah, I think the Lego thing fits for a lot of these games, because remember when it used to be movies were the big thing? It was like, oh, Lord of the Rings, Lego. But games are getting so big that, and we've seen this before, by the way, this is not magically a new thing, but you got Avengers and stuff like that. So especially Sony, Horizon's huge. And it's an interesting world, so making a Lego game out of it. CB says, what happened to Forza Hot Wheels? Yeah, there's the Forza Horizon Hot Wheels expansion, so they've done some stuff too. But the Deagle says, been a Forza fan since Motorsport 1, and Horizon is still pretty good, but the Motorsport series is now in a rough spot. Been playing GT7, having more fun. Okay, I appreciate you saying that, but my God, that is not me. I don't know what it is about GT7, but fun is not what I would ever say with that game. I distinctly, even with all the issues, for some reason, would much rather play Forza, even Forza Motorsport. I don't know.
Was that because of the way you get cars in GT7 and
they
everything?
They both suck. They both have so many issues with how you get vehicles, Johnny, or how you do your upgrades. They both
the progression and everything.
Yeah, they're just neither are. They've been gamified to a point to where it's just not great. But the overall fun and getting into stuff and doing it, to me, is just far more on the Forza side. I don't dislike GT7 at all, but there's something that's always been almost antiseptic, cleaned, bleached away in the GT games that has always pushed me back. And I don't know why. Robert says, did any of you read about Transformers game being canceled? I did. Sucks balls. Yeah, so can't remember the game company. Dude, let me look here if I can find this. Basically, what happened was there was a Transformers game that was being made. I don't know the format, as in I don't know the gameplay genre, but it got the developer. I think the developer's also looking at layoffs too. Let me see if I can find that one. Or anybody in chat.
Damage?
Splash Damage. Thank you. You rock. Whoever said that. Yeah. Or was that
Yeah,
you
so it's
looking it up?
yeah, it's me. It was called Transformers Reactivate, and it got deactivated instead.
Wow. Damn. That's one hell of a segue. It was deactivated. I'm a Transformers fan. Transformers Devastation is one of my favorite games of all time. So that was sad to see that happen. I don't know what version of Transformers it was. It was probably the newer version, like maybe movie. But if it had been like the old 1980s Transformer game, man, that would have sucked because I was such a huge fan. Such a huge fan of that old style. Devastation was primo, man. It's crazy as we've moved forward, too. You know, Platinum Games, they've lost a bunch of people. It's like a lot of developers have changed. This is the year of transformation, you know, when it comes to just how that was not a pun on purpose, by the way. That was not. Mine wasn't.
Oh,
you went out and tried to do it. I just accidentally.
Yeah, I admit. Yeah.
Yeah. What I meant was, I was going to probably say this anyway, but I'm just saying that the entire industry is transforming. I don't know why people don't see it, and they keep saying stuff like, oh, nothing's going to change. And I think all we've seen for the last 3 years is change every time. And the idea of some of the stuff, the OEM, for instance, is not crazy to me. The idea, did you guys see LG's doing the Xbox app as well? They're putting that on their TVs. That is not going to be the end of that. Like
to stream games?
Yeah.
Cool.
And I can tell you, dude, as somebody who has a PC to stream the GeForce on the PC, my Samsung app, I don't know what magic they're doing, Johnny, but I swear to God, it somehow is better than the PC version. Like
Amazing.
Maybe not better. It's good. I tested it just for the hell of it, forgot it was even on the TV, and was like, okay, I'll sign in and go through the rigmarole. Luckily, they've sort of smoothed the sign in, and I decided to play the Ascent on the TV through the app. And I was like thinking, there's no chance it's going to be as good as a PC version because I've had such a bad experience with TV apps. They're terrible. TV apps are like, to me, my bane. I don't even want to click them. They always feel laggy, and like POS is, holy shit, was this good? And connecting the PC and the controller and everything's just one button, you know, just like a PC. Connecting the TV and the controller is just like a PC, except it's all in the front end. So when you play, it's like, do you have a controller? Hit sync, hit this button. It's like, boom, you're calling.
Was that like Ethernet connection on the TV or
I used
wireless?
Wireless connection on the TV. Oh yeah, I used a wireless connection, surprisingly enough. I have good wireless in my house though.
Yeah.
It's frying my nuts. I got a lot of routers in this house. Like there's no place in this house that doesn't deliver like 16K 90 FPS if I wanted to. I'm the guy who walks around and checks corners of my house because I'm like, I could be in this corner.
There's a slower spot here.
Yeah. Wait, did it go down a single bar? We best go and move this router. I did get a mesh, Johnny. I don't know if I think I told you this because your house isn't big. You don't need one. But I thought mesh wouldn't work. I was pretty anti that. So I've been doing my own systems, and randomly there was one on sale. It was Amazon. I was like, well, I can return it. Holy shit, man. Yeah, that shit's magic. Like I'm streaming.
So is it just like another router basically, but it just like extends
and it just bounces it, but the latency is just effectively zero even after 2 or 3 bounces. I've been surprised because I was playing and getting #1 many time in Call of Duty while I was in my garage, which is
a bit of a flex, but I respect.
No, that's not a flex. That's just, I mean, it's Call of Duty. Like you can get #1, skill based. It's like once you go high, you're not going to get #1. But I just mean I was able to play perfectly. And dude, I was doing Moonlight.
Yep.
Fuck. Anyway, I was doing Moonlight.
We almost got it. Okay.
And in my garage as well, playing with a mouse and keyboard. Like that shit, that's ridiculous.
Damn.
Yeah. It like just sitting there going, wow. Would I rather do LAN? Of course.
Sure.
Of course. Even you don't want to use wireless if you don't have to. I definitely would rather have been plugged in, but this was so
playing
I could
with
work
mouse
out
and keyboard, that's the highest standard. Like if that's working pretty well, then you got it.
It's ace, man. It's pretty crazy. Like it's mind blowing. What else do we got, man? What was
on that topic? Actually, I saw that GeForce Now was releasing a native app for Steam Deck.
Yes.
And I thought that was interesting because, like you said, Steam Deck so far has been a pure like Steam library machine.
Yeah.
Right. And you could do stuff like, you can open a browser, I guess, right? And technically run a streaming game in there. You could install Windows on it if you really wanted, but a lot of those are hoops for the normal user, like the average Joe who's sitting down and like booting up his Steam Deck.
So I think you were in the conversation, but I still believe this will happen. So prior to Game Pass games going on GeForce, you know, we had heard some stuff and I was like, that's for sure. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It finally happened. Dude, at some point, when does Xbox look at GeForce and say, okay, every time we upgrade our systems, we have to make our own cloud completely separate from everybody else of these systems that can't do high bit rate because we're using the systems to do it? Or do we say, screw it, and we combine with GeForce and you have them do your cloud? Because, dude, Xbox Game Cloud is rough. It's rough. It's, I mean, its bit rate is super low. They're trying to figure out stuff with latency. They did an update recently for latency that they had stated, or for bit rate, but not latency, that they had stated to sort of improve the picture. So we tested that. Still rough. At what point, you know, the big problem is if NVIDIA went down, right? If some major disaster happened. But imagine you open your Xbox app and you just hit play. I mean, it doesn't need to tell you you're on an Xbox cloud. Doesn't matter. You know, it's cloud. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. But if it just goes to GeForce, where you have a system there that, I mean, even if GeForce had a way to mimic the console and not go super crazy, and you're just playing a GeForce version of it. Because why they're doubling up on cloud stuff. It's in two places now. It's in, I mean, it's weird when you think about it. It's so odd that those games are there and GeForce. You know what I mean? Like there's this doubling up of server locations and all this kind of stuff that sometimes you just look at and you're like, why are you guys all doing this? Why, you know, that's another change I expect to see some flexibility. I just never expected Microsoft and NVIDIA to work again after the original Xbox snafu shit. So now that they've sort of made up and become, you know, lost lovers. Whatever,
I think it makes sense. If you try building something for many years and it's clearly not working, like their streaming stuff always has had problems.
Rough.
At some point, you look at build versus buy, and it starts looking pretty good, especially if you have Microsoft money, you know?
Yeah. I think honestly, when you look at it, I mean, especially as good as GeForce is now, and some of the regulation or some of the rules they're putting in for, like, you know, people with free accounts, how long you play as premium account, all that kind of stuff, feels to me like they understand that there's a particular level in which they can deliver stuff. You don't want to be too busy, but we're now getting games that are day and date on GeForce that are on Game Pass, that kind of thing. Just roll the fucking thing over and get rid of the. The idea of them doing their own cloud made sense, but if they do an Xbox Series XXL, they have to then figure out how to update all of that stuff so it plays at a minimum. They have to decide a hardware minimum, and another gen later, then they have to figure that out. It's like it's obviously becoming sort of an issue, and they don't seem to care about it as much anyway. Not to be rude, but you don't hear a lot about cloud. Overall, you just don't hear almost anything about cloud from them. So to me, it feels like this would be the way to do it. You know, just to be like, okay, we're just going to go ahead and say, hey, fuck it. You know, you can play. You just hit Game Pass and it plays in the background on the cloud, and it doesn't really matter to you or me or anybody where it's coming from. I mean, does it really? Like, do you care what device you're getting the cloud game from? Not really.
Yeah.
You know, you're just sort
of. Does Steam work through GeForce? Can you play a Steam game?
Yeah.
Through GeForce Now?
That's pretty much what its main library was. So you
don't have to rebuy a game.
No, not at all.
No.
No, this is there's some games that aren't on there, which is sort of the big caveat right now, is that some Steam games aren't on there. Like Take-Two, they don't want their games on GFN. They do not like it. Sony does not like it. Which is, weirdly enough, another reason why it would be sort of funny if Xbox was like, well, we like it, and then now you have it. Because, you know, I'm not saying it's a big deal, but I'm saying it's a big enough deal that Microsoft, you know, claimed all this stuff about the cloud. if you're going to point it out and say you can play these games on the cloud, but they're not great, and you have the ability to make them great, even if you're not the one supplying the hardware and you just roll it off onto somebody else, yeah, you're not making 100% of the profit from your own cloud support drive, somewhere. NVIDIA's making a cut, and you're making a cut. It's still got more people who are happier with the situation. Because I don't know many people are happy with Game Pass, Game Cloud. Like the cloud on
Game
Xbox.
Cloud.
I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
There might be people who love it, but I just, with his bitrate and latency issues, I really haven't heard anybody say, "Oh, this is seamless. I love it."
Yeah.
Just doesn't.
And it would be a boon to like Nvidia as well, because it's a whole catalog of games that would be available. So it's a big selling point too for people.
Yeah, Bit's talked about Bit works in that kind of industry and stuff, and he's talked about the ability, like what exactly would it take, and how you could go about it. It'd be exciting to see, because I do think that all these companies will have to have some kind of cloud in the future.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to be able to play their game anywhere, and it doesn't always mean it's going to directly work. Especially with, handheld, like Microsoft making a handheld device. Like, what's their hardware spec for a handheld device? Xbox Series S, probably. It's going to be hard to get, throw that into a handheld and have it be cost efficient. But you could do a streaming device like the cloud or something. It's weird. Portal got cloud. I don't know if you guys saw that. Portal, they patched the PlayStation Portal to stream cloud games. Yeah. I haven't tested it because, in all honesty, man, mine just looks like it's been thrown into the last time I brought it out here, I almost got a fucking skin infection from the dust on the goddamn thing. I need to dust it off.
You talked about the Valve game there for a minute.
No, not that Portal. Not that Portal. Let's see. Bit says Steam, Xbox, Epic, and Ubisoft are the biggest stores on GeForce Now currently. Yeah. So, it's cool to see all this. There's more ways to play your games, and I do get the desire for exclusives because, again, they do dial into your systems, which is also great. But I think you guys should prepare yourselves, because it's definitely, we said this 2 years ago, and it's come true. It's not stopping with just a couple Sony games on PC and a couple Microsoft games going elsewhere. It could be everybody. It could be third party for sure. Third parties, look at Square. They basically just came out and said, we're going to make games on everything. Like, we're not fucking around anymore.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense money wise. Moving on from there, what else do we got? Manor Lords did their 4th major update, bring in bridges, rivers, and experimental changes to that. Either one of you guys jump back into Manor Lords? Or jumped in?
I've never even played it.
Place? Okay.
Back in the...
No, I'm waiting for like the full version.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, what?
Yeah.
Any of you guys jumping into the betas for Elden Ring? The new expansion?
Yeah. So they have a network test later this month. I probably won't. I'm just gonna play the full thing when it comes out. Pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We know what it is.
Yeah, we know what it is, and I'm interested enough to check it out either way, if it's good or bad. And then there is also a demo for the first Berserker.
I saw that.
I forgot the full name. Yeah, so the 16th of this month, there's I believe a free demo on Xbox, PS5. I don't know if PC too. I haven't checked.
That's great though.
Yeah, that's cool. We can try it.
We need to play it, because I think it was you was in the stream with me where we were like, after the trailer, when we were breaking down the event trailers, we were like, I still have no clue really what this is. Like, we need to. And
absolutely.
then Hitman passed 75 million player milestone. 75.
Damn.
Yeah, dude, that's
a crazy number.
Great game though, man. Great series. Hitman's hit. Has there been, what's the bad Hitman? Blood. It wouldn't be Blood Money, right? What's the bad?
No,
Hitman?
Absolution was probably the most divisive.
Okay.
I think.
So you've got one that's divisive, and they hit for the most part, right? Like Hitman is just
and this recent trilogy was
I
pretty
think Contracts
much
didn't sell very well. Contracts was probably like the lowest selling one. At least at release. Certainly I had the impression that it didn't sell well. I think it was also like the only one that I didn't actually play at release and kind of sort of skipped over back when it released.
They do well. They're good games, man. Like the Hitman series is awesome. 75 million is nothing to. I mean, that's nuts. It's nuts. But it says players, right? I'm sure there's been free streaming.
And there's I'm sure there's also like double up from across different platforms with the same players and whatnot.
Game Pass and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. What else do we got for game news? Has there been anything else? Anybody in chat got anything you want us to talk about? There's, I think, when it comes to game news, other than the CES, which was big, talk about devices and new hardware coming. Switch 2 stuff has been pretty much the thing that's sort of dominated the rumors and the news. I haven't really seen much else other than that.
About Hitman. I did play Hitman last month actually for the Van Damme.
Oh yeah, how was that? How was Van Damme?
That was actually pretty great. It was really solid mission they made. Probably honestly the best. I would say the best mission they've made since they released Elusive Target and mission they've made since they released Hitman 3.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
How long's that up, dude? Is that still up? Like, is it?
I don't know if it is actually.
Oh, damn.
It might still be on the very, very tail end of being available. Yeah, I think the plan was to run it for 30 days, and I think it went up like December 18th or something, maybe. So it could still be up. But I definitely recommend you taking a look. And if you want to play it, I think you can access it through paid content and playing it in the mode called Elusive Arcade, because I think the mission is possibly available through there.
Damn.
But it's a lot of fun. You like infiltrate the underground facility in Chongqing in China. And basically it's Van Damme and like a dozen clones of him. And there are some really, really fun
that's amazing.
Like hits to set up and whatnot on the different clones and whatnot. And it's just a really, really fun sort of there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek nods to some of his movie roles and whatnot. And he really sort of hams it up in the performance. It's a lot of fun.
Exclusive.
Didn't they do one?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, didn't they do one with Sean Bean too? And joking about him dying.
They did.
Yeah. They also did like I think the first one they did actually was with celebrity was Gary Busey. Or
have they done Mr. T or Mickey Rourke?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, Mr. T, I don't think they'd be able to do given that he's
dead.
Sadly.
Yeah, but I thought for some reason that they had got something for that. But yeah, dude, how many have they had? They've had 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder how many. Let me look this up. How many elusive targets they've had?
I mean, they did one with that they had to pull with Conor McGregor. That they pulled because of the controversies involving McGregor. But they also did one with a DJ recently as well as an elusive target.
Just looking here. They changed the name around. It's hard. Let me scroll down here and look at all the elusive targets here. So Van Damme was the last one. Shoot, it's not listing them correctly. Darn it, I can't tell. Oh, because they also give him weird names, obviously, because he's not called. Van Damme. Yeah, I see. Because they're doing the different names. Darn it, they don't have who is who here. Shoot. Man, they have a lot. The Undying. Who's the Undying? Hitman 2.
That's Sean Bean.
That's okay. Here we go. Oh, of course. Okay.
Good.
Who's the Revolutionary?
That's not a celebrity, I don't think.
Okay. What about the Appraiser or the Politician? Either one of those?
Those are not the celebrities either.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
The Heartbreaker was that Conor McGregor? Because it looks like him in this picture.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been. Oh, there's Gary Busey. Dude, that's crazy. There we go. There we go. Actually, I think I was wrong. The disruptor was Connor. Okay. He's got his robe on. Like, of course that's him. Yeah. Did they do, this looks like Keanu Reeves, for Christ's sakes. They didn't do Keanu Reeves, did they?
No, they haven't done Keanu
Okay,
Reeves.
I didn't think so. Then you said a DJ they did. Sean Bean has come back 3 times or 2 times. The Undying.
I think 3 times or more.
That's
possibly
great.
more, actually.
One does not simply kill Sean.
Yeah, no,
Bean.
the great thing about the Undying reappearing was that, like, the first time he came in, like, one of the main ways to take him out was to smash his head into a pen and stab him through the eye socket. And then when he came back, he had, like, a patch for his eye.
They're saying
they
were saying that it was. I think you were confusing Darth Vader. He died, but Mr. T is alive.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
No, I didn't. I was convinced that he had passed away, sadly. But
hey, that's good.
That's
so here we go.
That's good news.
Bring Mr. T and elusive target. Mr. T, pity the fool. Yeah, I think the elusive target is a hyper intelligent way to take a game and then know what's popular at the time, like a Connor, and go, dude, we're gonna put him in. If some movie comes out, John Wick, it's like, let's put Keanu Reeves in. It's such an intelligent, and it fits almost everything. Like Gary Busey, crazy bad guy in Lethal Weapon 1, bring him in. Those kind of things are awesome. Sean Bean, who never, lives longer than 7-8 minutes in a movie, bring him in. I like this kind of stuff. Bring Sonic from the Sonic movies. It's big. I'm just joking. Do not do that. Yeah, so that would be cool. That would be awesome. Edgar says, "Thanks for your content, bros. Thank you very much. I appreciate it for sure. Appreciate you watching. Yeah, I like these ideas of the elusive targets. We don't have anything right now about the next Hitman, right? It's just Bond is what they're working on. That company. I think we haven't heard. Yeah. I don't think there's any
No, we haven't heard anything about a new Hitman game.
Dude, I love me some Hitman. I mean, Bond is fine, but to me, like, Hitman it's a different thing.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't appeal to me in the same way. I mean, Bond, that guy's always telling everybody he's a spy. Like I'm James Bond, I'm here to get my room. He'd be killed instantly. I like the idea of Hitman. Hitman is funny though. 6'6" bald guy puts on a chef's hat and everybody immediately assumes he's a chef.
Definitely a chef.
Definitely a chef. And then he's got some hair trimmers for sure. Just a giant barber. And then he gets a meat knife or whatever. And they're like, for sure a butcher. They just keep changing no matter what. And I also like how that disguise system falls apart if you do stick around. Hitman's just good, man. These new good. Hitmans taking the
and
weapons
it's so layered, isn't it? Because you could play the same level twice.
It is.
And that would be a completely different.
Dominic just brought something up. Tony Todd, he was in Indiana Jones, and he's passed away, the Candyman actor. I would take Tony Todd, call him like Sweet Man, and put him in as an elusive target. But as Silver was even alluding to, if somebody's passed away, there's all kinds of, that's legality wise, and who gets what is difficult. But who would be like some of the elusive targets right now? Legitimately, I do think, if you did,
dude, if you could get like Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
Oh my God.
The amazing thing about Gary Busey was that he didn't actually have an alternate name. He was just Gary Busey.
It was Gary Busey. Yeah, exactly. That's the best thing about it, is because Gary Busey's that crazy. You're like, you know what, guys? That's why I thought Mickey Rourke was one. I don't know why I did, but for the longest time, because Mickey Rourke is a little out there too. But dude, Joffrey from Game of Thrones would be
hell yeah, man,
amazing. Like he's some English royalty who shows up or something like that, and you got to hunt him down. That's a phenomenal idea.
Show him like shit talking some of his like employees or whatever.
Yeah, just being a dick. Mojo says he'd like to see Charles Bronson. I think Charles is probably, especially because he's passed away. I think
he was the older guy, right? Tywin Lannister.
No, Charles Bronson, he means the actor that's Charles Dance. Yeah, he means the actor from years ago who did like fucking a lot of crime movies, a lot of police officer movies. He's an actor that was way before your time.
particularly well known for the revenge movies. I forget the name.
Yeah,
of them.
it's not Death Wish. It's the other ones. But
no, isn't it Death Wish specifically?
I thought
yeah.
Death Wish was Clint. Is it not Clint?
No.
No, I think okay. Yeah, gotcha.
I think it is Death Wish. Yeah.
Yeah,
and also the Ennio Morricone Western, Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, I did say he was popular for cop stuff.
Ennio Morricone Western. So sorry, Sergio Leone Western. Yeah.
Yeah. Josh Brolin would be a crack and elusive target. Josh Brolin would be awesome. Josh Brolin, I feel like if you shot him, may not kill him anyway in real life. So having him,
yeah, he would be a solid.
He would be sweet as shit. That would be, yeah, I love the idea of that. Josh also looks like a guy who may murder people.
Yeah, he would fit right in.
He would fit right in. Who else? I do think John Wick would be awesome. I think it fits in all ways. That would be a tremendous get for Hitman, and it doesn't seem like they're stopping. So, I mean, let's see who else.
Well, maybe John Noble, the guy from Fringe.
Yeah, but what John Noble got? I mean, like. He's just I love him.
Oh, he can do an evil character really well. Like
he can do an evil character.
Not evil, but like a dick, like he did in Lord of the Rings.
Big Duck says the Rock Vin Diesel double elimination. That would be phenomenal. It will never, ever, ever, ever happen because I think those guys have so many rules against if they can be hurt and shit. But if the next elusive target is a Vin Diesel, I'll shave my beard. Like I would shave my beard. That would be amazing. Yeah, it's Death Wish. Just watched some through Jason Brandt's YouTube. I don't know what that means, but just watched it. Yeah. Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal would be awesome. Any of the older 80s action heroes like Sylvester Stallone would be phenomenal.
Sure. Arnold. Bring Arnold in there.
Yep, Arnold would be good. Pretty much any of those guys from the Expendables, right? Would be good.
Fun.
Jet Li would be awesome. Yeah, pretty much just take the Expendables.
Yeah, Statham, right? Jason Statham.
Yeah.
He'd be all right.
Gary Oldman. See, now you guys are just saying actors we like.
Okay, yeah.
They have nothing to do. I mean, he was in Hitman or Professional, obviously. You could do, what's his name? Renault? Or who's the guy who is the professional in that movie?
Jean Renault, yeah. Leon.
Leon.
Is the name of
that guy's awesome.
Character.
I don't even know. Does he act anymore? Like, do we see? Maybe he's just smaller. Oh my God! I just came up with one. Bardman,
so.
The guy from fucking.
Oh, I haven't seen him in anything either.
No Country for Old Men. Javier Bardman or Boardman.
Bardem. Yeah.
That would be amazing if he even has the canister.
Absolutely.
You do some in jokes about that guy, like killing people. Fuck yeah, that would be an amazing end.
Yeah.
SBZ says Jet Li is retired though. Bro, people been suggesting fucking dead people. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think we've gone past the worry of somebody being retired. Stallone.
I mean, Gary Busey wasn't super active when he was starred either.
Nah, Gary Busey
anymore.
Yeah. Random question: do people actually want to see a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum? Yes.
I think so. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
I actually think Taylor.
I would like it because I thought he was exceptional as Gambit. And
Big Mac says Danny Trejo as an elusive target.
A good one. Yep.
Yeah, Trejo would be great.
Dude, there's just a lot, and
yeah, there are a lot.
I don't know who came up with the idea, but
it's
I
smart,
love
isn't
that
it?
Dude, it's beyond belief smart. Like all the other stuff we talk about in games and stuff is great. But whoever came up with the idea of the elusive target and the idea to continually put them in at different times so that you want to return back to it, and then getting these actors that are joking, like Gary. Gary's the first one, to me, is funny on multiple levels. But he was a bad guy in Lethal Weapon 1. And he was actually, I would consider him to be one of the, not scarier ones, but Lethal Weapon 1, when he showed up, you didn't know, you knew he was like Black Ops, and he fought Mel Gibson and almost killed him. And he was killing other people. So you're like, okay, this works. And then he's also crazy, right? So you have the multiple levels. But I mean, Dolph Lundgren is another one I would love to see. Just call him the Russian. He shows up and like you go into wherever you're going to kill him and you see like a pair of boxing shorts on the wall, a little inside joke about Rocky. You could do Red Scorpion jokes. Whoever came up with that idea, that's what I love about gaming is it's not just like a cameo. It's the fact that he's in the game, you can interact, and it just brings it one step
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah, and they're like these elusive targets all have sort of storylines tied to them where they talk to other characters and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, I do think it's a fantastic idea.
With Van Damme's actually having the biggest one so far.
Van Damme has the biggest what so far?
Just the
spoken
like
lines?
story spoken lines, and like the entire level sort of fitted around him.
So we can talk about this because I'm excited for this, and I know it probably doesn't speak to people as much, but I think it's a good indicator of something. So I've been following Exodus, which is the hard sci-fi a book / video game, and McConaughey. And I do want to point it out once again that it's so with Keanu Reeves, no issues with him, and with Idris Elba, no issues there. They were both in Cyberpunk, and they were there, and they did their interviews and all that. But if you go look at what Matthew McConaughey is doing for Exodus, it is far beyond that. I mean, he's reading during random trailers. Like, there's something about it that speaks to me as this awesome point where, and it's not just McConaughey, this could be anybody, by the way. But I like the idea that in particular, McConaughey fits because he's airy. If you ever listen to that guy, he's like sort of out there anyway, a little bit. Him and Woody Harrelson definitely are a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
They both are a little bit like, hey, and yet Interstellar is, I'm sure, why Matthew McConaughey is doing this. As in, he was seen in Interstellar, they got him. But when he's reading these things and all this stuff, there's sort of this awesome crossing point of these people coming into games that are doing more. Again, I don't want to diss on this, but doing more than just Keanu Reeves showing up as Johnny. There's something there. There's a little bit of an intangible thing that I'm seeing where you're seeing a
like
little bit
their own
more
personality in a way, or like their own.
It's just not that they're just in the game. And that there's a little bit more being rubbed off on it. Like I said, it's very weird to go to this small website and Matthew McConaughey is reading the trailers and doing the voiceovers. There's something about that speaks to me of this awesome thing that a lot of movie stars have always said we're gamers. You see this a lot. Oh, I'm a gamer. I play my games. We now see UFC stars streaming on Twitch and stuff like that. I think this helps a ton to like just make sure that everybody sees gaming as this bigger overarching. We know it's big. It's the biggest entertainment industry in the world, but you still see a lot of TV. Like Keanu Reeves doesn't surprise me that he was in Cyberpunk. Matthew McConaughey being in Exodus, that's surprising.
Yeah,
I guess that's the step I needed to where I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I nothing against Keanu, just does some. It would be like if Nicolas Cage showed up. You'd be like, okay, well, Nicolas Cage was in Wicker Man. And, Color Out of Space or whatever, he does his weird shit. Matthew McConaughey was known for rom-coms and then Mud, and then suddenly he becomes this, like, superstar of stuff, and then he's reading on a very small YouTube channel to cover a game. I think that's exciting stuff. And it also helps in the PR department. We talk about how much they are to be made. It can help a little bit if you've got Matthew McConaughey reading your trailers. Just saying.
Yeah.
If I could get Matthew McConaughey to do my fucking walking in trailer for the podcast,
and even like
I would be happy
the themes that the game is portraying, like like time dilation and
it all fits,
things
right?
like that. It's all evocative of the film itself, which like everybody knows. It's in the collective right now. Like everybody remembers his crying scene, right? Like when he sees his daughter that's way older or whatever. All that stuff is working together.
Yeah, it's just a side tangent. I was just really excited to see extra buy-in. That felt like it was a little bit more than, hey, we got Keanu.
Yeah, it is
Derek,
bringing something a little.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Matthew's like, maybe he's like Eric Bana, because Eric Bana has a full, like, I guess you'd call it like a detective series on Amazon Kindle or whatever their Audible. He's got his own.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like that. Maybe Matthew's just open for anything. If he is, it'll be like,
I get the feeling based on like watching him talk that he gets excited about something.
Yeah.
And then he just wants to do it. I really like that about him because it feels really genuine. Like he wanted to have a crack at that specific thing. And it's been different things throughout time, like Dallas Club that popped up for him. And he was like, yes, I'm, And
Yeah,
I like that attitude of like, dude, yes, I'm into this.
Absolutely. I mean, it pays off. And like I said, especially as games, it's better than the game or the movie as a game market, if that makes sense. I'm much more interested in this than I would be an Interstellar game, is I guess what I'm saying. That to me is like, whatever. Not really into that. But the idea of being in from the ground up, always cool. Always signifies, or hopefully, is me being a cynic, hopefully signifies interest in that, and not just not just getting paid to do the voiceover. I don't know. I'm gonna look him up. Maybe he's on Fiverr. Maybe the guy's on Fiverr just selling his voice out for $5. He's on, hey man, I'll come on, I'll talk. You can have him. You'll be like, we're gonna do League of Legends, but before we do, here's somebody you may know talking about how good my channel is.
Yeah. All right.
What else do we got? Let's see.
I was thinking about Altered Carbon, which I've been reading, right? You recommended it to me. It's been really good. And I was thinking if there could be a game made out of that, like where you're this detective in a cyberpunk world.
Yes, there could.
And
I would kill for it. And the reason why, Johnny, is if you read the rest, he's always talking about other jobs he did. Like Kovacs always stating, like, I went here and did this, and then that's it. That's all you hear.
So would you rather have a game about those things where like he was, learning how to be an envoy and everything versus the story itself?
Yes.
From Altered Carbon?
Yeah, I think that people like the books. The show was fine, but if you're interactive, cover the other stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's an interesting ass world. Yeah, the more cyberpunk stuff, right, the better. Like, the more futuristic stuff, the better.
Yeah, I just think as much as we've gotten a lot of cyberpunk stuff after cyberpunk, I think not enough. I think there's still so much we could do there.
Absolutely.
Especially for AAA games. We really haven't had, we get a lot of
indie and B
like
level,
visual
maybe.
novels, indie games and stuff set in cyberpunk. Maybe it's hard to do. I'm not sure. Maybe that is why.
Costs a ton of money. Alton says, what games directly tackle philosophy about time and space? I think Quantum Break, for as much shit as I give Quantum Break, I actually think Quantum Break handled sort of the reality kind of stuff. And
Deathloop does as well.
Yeah, Deathloop does. Yeah, Deathloop for sure. And it's part of the game, right? It's actually built into the game. It's not just
it's very integral to the game itself.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I had my issues with that one, but it definitely handles that quite well. What other ones? I mean,
does Prey
I don't know if Prey handles time much.
No, right? It isn't time. It isn't looped. It's just,
I think the best one that I've played recently that sort of came and went, and I'm really sad, is the latest Life is Strange. The newest Life is Strange handles, time being not necessarily just past and future, but splitting realities. That game, honestly, to me, was one of the better games to handle choices over here, then going, wow, that's the wrong choice. Yeah. Choices over here, and then being like, oh shit, now that choice is fucked up, and I've got to do this. And there was one scene in that game, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but there's a particular scene in the game where I was like, oh shit, if somebody realized how big of a deal that was, because I don't think the developers did. They knew it was a big deal, but I'm saying, to me, it was like one of those moments where you're like, holy shit, if the entire game's this way, wow, it didn't turn out to be that way. And it wasn't a cost thing. I think that's just not the way they wanted to go. But I think that game handled it really
There's also
well.
Two indie games.
Outer Wilds.
Sexy Brutale.
Sexy Brutale, definitely. Yeah. That is a good example.
And probably my favorite time loop game, which is Elsinore.
Haven't played that.
Which is a game I've raved about before, but is about casting you as Ophelia in Hamlet, and you basically have to go through the Hamlet play up until Ophelia kills herself, and sort of run that loop and try and change the events of the Hamlet play so that people survive.
So that she doesn't die? Or that
and not just that she doesn't die, but that not everyone dies.
Right.
Because a lot of people die in Hamlet. Spoiler. But
yeah.
but
hey,
yeah.
just so if somebody doesn't know that Hamlet's pretty depressive as fuck, we spoiled that for you. That's an indie title.
Yeah, called Elsinore.
Elsinore.
That's really, really well made.
Yeah, the time ones, I think a lot of times when you look at them, it'll be covered in either indie or to be covered in the Life is Strange Telltale style, because those are a little easier to deliver it and not bloat your cost up to an unbelievable amount. I do think Quantum Break handled the reality parts pretty well. I mean, it's in the fucking name. I'm trying to think of another one that really handles. I mean, Time Cat, was that what it was? Blinks, the Time Cat. That was one where like you could destroy a bridge, run across it, or sorry, you could run across a bridge, destroy it, then the enemies couldn't get across it. It was a platformer shooter style game. I like the idea of that. And then Panchiro admits that 12 Minutes was one. 12 Minutes is the one with like Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, it's just one room.
It was
and
3 or 4 big actors, right? Yeah, it was one room that just kept repeating the same 12, right? And then honestly, I can't believe I almost didn't mention this, and it's popped into my head and then it went away. It's the 2D game that I always talk about as being one, Oxenfree. Oxenfree 1 and 2 absolutely handle time incredibly well, and they are fantastic games. If you haven't played Oxenfree, you've missed out. If you like that kind of stuff, just incredible games. What else we got before we wrap it up? Do we have any cool stuff that's going on? Any cool shows, movies, games that anybody wants to see? Or?
Yeah, actually, I've been watching. For some reason, apparently 2024 turned out to be the year of the Count of Monte Cristo, because we got a new French adaptation of film adaptation. We've also gotten a full series, actually, by acclaimed Oscar Academy Award winning Danish director Bille August, who and Jeremy Irons as well, in an English language cross production between British, French, and Italian production companies for the Count of an adaptation of the Count of Monte Cristo. That's really good, like the series. Really, really fairly faithful adaptation of Dumas' sort of ultimate revenge story.
Haven't seen the show. I'll watch that for sure.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Like Irons is really, really good as the prisoner, Abbey Faria, even though he's only in for like one episode. But he leaves a mark.
I wasn't aware whatsoever about the story or anything. I'm not a big like that kind of classics fan. I mean, some,
right?
Moby Dick occasionally, some touch here and go or here and there. But when I saw the movie with Whisper Man from Person of Interest, Cavell or whatever, Caviezel, and dude, like I went from like not caring to being like, this is what the fuck, this is good, and then ended up sort of diving into that. And yeah, I'll definitely watch a TV show based on it. I had no clue there was even a TV. I mean, that's TV for you right now.
Yeah, the story is really cool.
You could tell me 15 fucking TV shows, and I would not know, even though they might even be a genre I love, and I wouldn't even know because there's so much stuff to imbibe. That is awesome. Jeremy Irons being in it's even better because, like, I love that guy. He's in some weird ones too, because Jeremy Irons will be in something super fucking serious as shit. Then he'll be in Die Hard. Then he'll be in the other one, Three Musketeers, right? He was which one was he in Three Musketeers? Because he was in the one with Jabergiak.
Yeah.
He was
yeah.
in
yeah. I don't even remember.
And dude, he was fucking good. He was. Oh, somebody mentioned Skinny Cavell as the son in that movie. I mentioned that yesterday, and no one realized
Cavill's
that.
in it.
Cavill's in it. Yeah, and he's already big. I mean, he's skinny, but
big.
he's like he is a big man in that.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Irons has been in some crazy stuff too. So yeah, I love that guy. I'll watch that, man. I didn't know. I'm watching Chicago PD, which is a police procedural kind of thing. I'm watching it because I like it that the main guy is basically good guy / bad guy, and he does, he's supposed to be a good guy, but you're, pretty dirty. Been enjoying the shit out of that for the one-liners and just stupid stuff that happens. I always love that sit back and just watch something. And then Tron Legacy is the thing I'm looking forward to the most, which is the new Tron movie. I think it's Legacy. I cannot wait for that. I'm a Tron freak. I think a game that's an RPG based in the Tron world is still one of my biggest like desires. So those are the things I'm looking forward to and watching. What about you, Johnny? How about watching and then looking forward to?
I've been checking out Reacher, the show.
Oh, gotcha. Excellent.
So I watched like the first season completely, and now checking out the second one, and I like it as a
popcorn.
Popcorn action, enjoyable. It's got some funny moments too. Like he was chasing a car, right? Someone was driving away, and what occurs to him is to pick up a barbecue.
Yeah.
So like it
was like a video game moment, Johnny. Barbecue of all things.
Dude, he picked up a whole barbecue and tossed it at the car to make the car, stop and crash and stuff. It was just, that's a good way to put it. It is like video game.
Hold L trigger to pick up the item and then toss it no matter how big it is.
Press X to punch the annoying person.
Yeah.
It's good, man.
Did you watch the movies with Tom Cruise?
With Tom Cruise, I really liked the movie.
Me too. I'm the odd man out. I still think after watching the show, which I enjoy, Tom Cruise being smaller actually worked for me because I didn't read the novels until later.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly understand why people are like, oh, that doesn't fit. But I sort of like the movies. In fact, the first one I thought was one of the best.
I've only seen the first. I didn't know there was a second Reacher movie. Is that the case?
Yeah, and it's good, but the first one is the good one. The first one.
I thought it was really good. The character was very different, I think, than
very different character.
So it's a bit like Daniel Craig playing James Bond.
Yes.
Where, he just got the physicality and everything. I think Tom Cruise, in his own way, has got his physicality.
Yeah.
But it's a different archetype in a way. And it was a bit more cerebral, I think, than what this guy is. But yeah, I like both. I like the idea of we always talk about the competency.
Competence
aspect. Yeah, competent. Yeah, exactly. Like when someone's good at what they do, right? And that's kind of what I get as well.
And then what about looking forward to? Like it can be a movie from 10, but it has to be coming. If you get my drift.
Okay,
it has to be something.
I'm looking forward to the next Squid Game season. So they recently released season 2, and it turned out to be a short one. I think it's only like 8 episodes.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're releasing another season this year still. So it's going to be 2 seasons.
What?
No
so
shit.
It's almost so they're like doing like January, November something, and it's the same.
They haven't said month yet, but
okay.
It's kind of like a part 2. They're just calling it next season.
Damn.
But
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, the way it works out, the first season has a very clear ending. It's over. And then you can continue from there, but there's a conclusion, is what I'm saying. And second season is more like we're taking a break. There's clearly like, a lot of unfinished business here, and there's a whole ass new season coming.
So do me a favor, because I still don't understand anything about Squid Games. Is it
okay?
Is it a TV show? Is it a reality game show, or is it
No,
acted?
it's a pure TV show. It's acted like a normal show.
Okay.
The only thing is it's Korean, so it's a bit different than what we're used to. Right?
Understood. Yeah.
But with that said, it's a normal show, normal series, and the main idea of it is you're playing these games where people are getting eliminated and literally dying in these games, right?
Okay.
So
gotcha.
These are like lethal games. And the idea is that every time, so they start with 300 or something people, and every time a person dies, they add like a significant amount of money to the
prize pool.
The prize pool.
Right.
Yeah, the prize pool. So the more people die, the bigger the prize pool. And as they get towards the end of the games, there's less and less people. The prize pool is bigger. And there's a whole bunch of stuff around that. So it's how people navigate these games.
Can somebody just kill everybody else if they wanted?
Yeah, that is actually part of the plot is that at
Sorry
some point
that I
people...
immediately degenerated to me being the murderer of everybody else. But
right.
like...
Well, it's funny because, yeah, at some point people just realize, hold on a second, we don't need to wait for the game
exactly
for people to die, because if we just kill a bunch of people now, that means the prize pool goes up.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so there's all this type of stuff like mind games and, you know, betrayals, everything you can imagine of that type of thing.
But I don't understand. Where are they? How do they die? Where would somebody be that they're just randomly dying?
So the rub is that everybody in there is in a desperate situation in life. Like they're completely
alone,
riddled,
you mean, like...
in debt. Like
okay.
You know, they basically, like, their life is over, kind of, and they have no other recourse. And they seek these people out specifically, and they give them the option, hey, come play this game. You can earn a lot of money, but they only learn about the dying part later once they're in there.
They don't tell them about that part.
They're given the option to abandon the games after each round. But what ends up happening is that the greed, because a lot of them are gambling addicts too. That's part of how they got into debt, a lot of them, right? The greed thing that, yeah, even though we know, like, we're probably all going to die in the next game, they still choose to play another game.
Right, but I'm saying, what's the game? How do you die? How would give me an example? Like, how does somebody die in Squid Games?
So a lot of the time they're playing like kids games, but doing a lethal version of them. So for example,
Simon Says, but you can die.
So could be Simon Says. There's another one where there's a doll looking at them, and the doll turns around, starts singing, and while she's singing, you can move forward. So imagine a big field, like a football field. You can run forward in the field. And when she turns around, if she catches you moving, they shoot you. They kill you on the spot. So you have to, like, stop moving when she turns around and stop singing. And then the doll turns. You can continue running again. And you have like 5 minutes to get to the end of the field. Mm-hmm. So if either time runs out or you get caught.
Johnny?
Sorry?
Yeah, I don't know how that translates to a children's game that I've ever heard of, but I love the idea of it.
It is because
Johnny's born again hard, man.
That
like where he lived,
kid,
games were real.
Well, there would be one kid that does the looking, right? And they say, "Oh, caught you. You're out, right? You're eliminated." But instead of that, they shoot you with a
So
sniper.
I have a question. Could that kid be paid off so that he says somebody was moving when they really weren't moving?
No, because it was actually a mechanical doll with like motion detection.
You can tell I'm already trying to game the system. I'm the guy that they'd be like, "Do you want to leave?" And I'd be like, "Oh, hell no, man. I got plans for this next." Do they know what games?
Some people do kind of game it. Like, you know, there's some smart people in there that like
game the system,
advantages.
Game
the game.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cool. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is cool. I you know, you saw it all the time, and it was like, it's hard to know exactly what it is, and I don't ever see it on my. I'm assuming this is Netflix.
It is Netflix, yeah.
Doesn't pop up on my Netflix as like a thing to watch, probably because after you've played for a while, or after you've watched a bunch of shows, it knows what you want to see, and it just keeps regurgitating the same fucking 5 things in your algorithm. So I never see that. Like I end up rewatching stuff, not a lot of times because I seek it out, but I go to Netflix, I get done with one, and then the next thing is what I've already watched before. You know, do you want to rewatch this? It's like, whatever. Netflix's algorithm works better than almost any of the others for me because I end up sticking on. Netflix has got my watch time, I guess is what I should say, for sure.
Yeah.
As we wrap, go for it.
There's a film I've been waiting for like 3 years now or so that's looking to finally be released this year, by a French animator called Sylvain Chomet, called The Magnificent Life of Marcel Pagnol. Marcel Pagnol being a famous French playwright, writer, and filmmaker himself. Like Chomet's like an amazing animator. He draws traditional 2D animation. He's made in the past The Triplets of Belleville and The Illusionist, being his two most famous movies. And one of the defining qualities about his films is that he uses very, very little dialogue. So nearly his entire films are basically told through visual storytelling. And he's exceptional at that. His films also are usually very, very funny. So yeah, his latest film looks to be excellent as always, and I've been looking forward to it. Like, it's been in production for a very, very long time, and it's looking like it's finally seeing a wide release this year.
Does he have a problem getting the film? Are all of his films long production?
Yeah, I mean, they are, because they are like traditional animation.
Yeah.
So it's traditional 2D animation, hand drawn, with a bit of like computer artistry in there for like 3D effects and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of old fashioned handiwork, and you can see it in like sort of some of the coarse outlines of some of the sketches of the characters that actually serves to make them seem a lot more alive. And breathe a lot more life into them, and fun and personality. Yeah, it's just he's an amazing artist. And
is the animation like more Rats and Nim, or is it more like newer stuff? Like, what's the animation?
No, it's very caricatured. So characters are very, very striking, and sort of they're shaped by their personality very often.
That helps in aiding the storytelling, especially if there's no words.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah, you definitely have to do that. That's cool. No, I didn't know that it was even coming out. Oh, anyway, yeah, I was gonna say, so watch that as well. If you get a chance, check out Johnny's channel. It's Johnny Plays. That's it.
Yes.
And it's League of Legends, and just him trying to figure out how to play it. He's been playing it for a long time, doesn't know how. Terrible player. But you know, if you want to support a terrible player, go support Johnny. I'm just joking.
Exactly.
How many you got? You're still doing once a day?
Yeah, Monday to Friday. There's a new episode.
And he's even got the long go to sleep episodes that you can watch that are like 5 hours if you want to learn how to do a certain hero.
Get lost in the commentary.
Yeah, get lost in the commentary.
Beautiful.
If you want to continue this conversation, the patron link is right there. Absolutely appreciate if you guys jump in. You can become a YouTube member, which also lets you jump into the Discord as well, where we stream games, do some D&D, do some board games, have good times just hanging out, talking about random shit. I mean, definitely not risky, definitely like laid back PG stuff. It would never turns R-rated like it did last night.
Never.
Last night I had to put some guardrails on the convo. It was it went sideways fucking quick, man. You go in there and somebody says one thing and everybody's like, well, what about a game about this? And you're like, I think that's questionable in pretty much any nation, guys. But we'll talk about it anyway. But if you guys want to jump in, I absolutely appreciate that stuff. You guys should also check out the 2024 Didn't Suck video I did, which is just about some of the games I loved in 2024. And some surprises on there for people. I think Johnny asked me in a convo, he's like, are you doing a 2024 video? And I was like,
yeah.
Nah, I lied. I lied to him. I was like, nah, I don't think I'm interested. But I was doing it at the time because I didn't want...
you did say, like, maybe I will, because you weren't sure.
I don't like to tell people I'm doing that because I don't want somebody to mention games that I, like, that don't stick to my brain. But also, if somebody has an issue with the game and you tell me, then, you know, it's possible it could... So I was like, nah, I'm not doing one, because I normally don't, but it was a fun video to do because there were some, Pacific Drive being one of them, games that I'd sort of not forgot about, but, you know, they get back in the brain pan. And then when I went and, like, looked at my list, and I was like, oh my God, I love this game. Like, I'm glad I did this video. So it was an hour and 40 minutes, and I edited it down to like 58 minutes. So if you can handle me talking at 58 minutes, great. I would appreciate you watching it. Leave it on a channel, put it on your second monitor, mute me, just let it run. We were talking about that too a couple days ago. We were like, if I told everybody in Discord, there's only like 1,000 of us, but if I was like, if everybody popped up the video and just let it play all the way through, that would incredibly help watch time. Just saying. Not telling you to do it, just saying it would help. That's it for us. I hope you guys have an awesome week and weekend. We will see you next Friday. Peace out, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye-bye.
Take care.